very, very first episode of Pro Wrestling Talk.
Yeah.
And I am your one of your hosts, Angel Rivera, as you can see, host of Angel in the Afternoon, Friday at 7 Eastern. And alongside me is Miss Witchy Perfect, my co-host for this podcast. How are you doing this evening? I'm
I
glitching in and
am
out.
that's yeah, that's why I don't use my background. I would love
Yeah.
to, but it kind of glitches when I move and I have to move like extra close and I'm like, well, I don't
Yeah.
think people want to see me too close. I'm actually good. I had a good day at work, so and now I'm ready to talk about wrestling. I was trying to, like I said, I was trying to get the Jim Cornette podcast in there because I
Mm-hmm.
love listening to him and I wanted to hear what he said about. He was going to talk about Billy Jack Haynes and the alleged things that happened, but I didn't get to finish it because my customer just wouldn't leave me alone. I'm like, I'm
Uh,
going to fix your computer. Don't worry. You can leave now. And he's just standing there looking at me. So.
well, he expects you to fix it at that moment. I mean,
Well, he wanted me to watch what I was doing because he's very inquisitive, and
uh,
this is there's several different kinds of customers that we deal with. Those are the customers that just want you to fix it. They want you to fix it now, like yesterday. Okay. Then
yeah,
there's the customer that's kind of like, well, tell me exactly what you're going to do. They don't want to watch me do it, but they just want to know what I'm going to do. So, like, almost like a step by step kind of thing.
yeah,
And then there's those customers that are like watching me do it so they can kind of learn a little specific of what the computer is all about because I always get this all the time. Oh, I'm so stupid about the computer or not, I'm not computer savvy. Look, no one's ever stupid.
mm-hmm.
You just learn at your own pace. And there are those customers that are literally, very inquisitive about, how to fix a computer. And
Yeah,
he even asked me, how long did you go to school for it? And I said, 21 months. So, and I told him when I went to school for computers, XP was prominent, not, not Windows 7, not Windows 10, Windows 11. So everything I learned about Windows 10 and Windows 11, I learned basically on the job I have now.
yeah,
And I can tear a computer apart, put it right back together. And literally, I had to do a fan. Like I don't know what is it with the mail lately. Like I had to fix a computer fan because the fan,
yeah.
um, just it was throwing errors and stuff. So I tore this
Hmm.
computer all apart and I ordered the fan and it's stuck in Alabama. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. So I ordered another one. That was supposed to be here Tuesday. It came yesterday. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Come on. I
There's
can't fix
probably
this.
budget cuts at the post office or
Something like
whatever.
that.
Uh,
Cause I had to there's only see the thing is sometimes you have to buy the heat sink with the fan.
yeah,
Sometimes you can get the fan by itself, and that's what I had, but unfortunately, it's been over a week. The girl's like, "Where's my computer?" I'm like, "I'm so sorry, it's stuck in the mail. I
yeah.
can't get it here any faster." So I had to actually buy one with the heat sink. Well, I'm just gonna have to send the heat sink back because I don't have any. It wasn't the heat sink that was the problem; it was the fan. So, trust me, take it from me, Earl. YouTube. Even for technicians, YouTube is like our greatest help. Um,
Yeah.
I can watch a person taking a computer apart and I can take it apart and then put it back together if I just rewind the YouTube. So, it is a little complicated. I mean, you have to know what you're doing, obviously, if when it comes to the computers, because you can really mess them up. We also sell computers. Um,
Okay.
yeah, we sell new and refurbished. We have several new ones. We have a Dell and two Lenovo's that are brand spanking new, and they are Windows 11. Um, so, Jim Bean and gamers. We do have some. We have a refurbished gaming laptop, and then we also have a brand new gaming laptop. They're like middle grade, I'd say.
Yeah.
One is $7.99, the other one is $6.29. One is a Lenovo IdeaPad, the other one is an HP. HP. I think it's a pavilion. Alasco fan cooling my computer. I'm guessing that's a brand. I don't even look at the brand of fans. I just kind of put them in.
Yeah, I don't know much about that. But yeah, we're here to talk about wrestling. This is
Yeah,
that
not
podcast.
computers.
Yeah,
Sorry,
we
guys.
went on a tangent about computers, but that's fine. So yeah, I guess what I thought we should do is kind of introduce myself. I mean ourselves. Yeah, I'm glitching out here, and I'll start. I
So,
guess. My name. You guys know my name already. Well, I've been a wrestling fan since I was a little boy, so that puts me at around over 30 years. I mean, I first started watching late 80s when I was in my mother's lap, so she got me into wrestling. So late 80s, and I've pretty much watched consistently ever since. And I have plenty of my favorite wrestlers. I mean, hence of the era. I mean, I talked about it on your podcast, but Bret Hart, Austin, Taker's always been there too. Never liked Cena. um Edge was okay, and I'm just going through eras. And post that Roman Reigns I like too, but that's pretty much it. I mean, the modern wrestling I'm kind of not really into because they're mostly it's just I don't know, just these guys are boring. I mean, they're not really personalities. There's very few that are actually personalities in wrestling these days. Most of them are just into the moves. I
mhm.
call it video game wrestling or Cirque du Soleil wrestling.
Yeah, that's what
It
Jim
just
Cornette calls it. Yeah.
yeah, that's what I started. I call it also video game wrestling because all it's just move, 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 and nothing else. So that's where a lot of these younger guys learned is like, okay, well that's wrestling, right? Because I saw it in WWE 2K video games, so let me just do that. And that's basically what modern wrestling is. Not everybody does it. WWE doesn't do it like that for the most part. I mean, there's some guys who
Mhm.
do it, but for the most part, they don't. AEW, that's all they do. I mean, I'm like, and if you follow me on Twitter, you see me complaining about AEW all the time. So it's like I just sleep through it a lot of times. I try to watch it, but it's like my ambient. I fall asleep pretty easily. So yeah, that's my thoughts. I mean, you can introduce yourself now if you want, and talk about your
Yeah.
wrestling background.
Yeah, I'm Mrs. Witchy Perfect, as everyone knows me over on Kit's channel, Hardlands Media, but my real name is Steph. Just call me Steph. That's what everyone calls me. Um, and I grew up watching wrestling when I was 4 years old. I remember WrestleMania 7. I don't really remember the Mr. Perfect match, but I do remember Liz and Randy and the whole career ending match between the Ultimate Warrior. And that's when Liz and Randy got back together and everyone was crying. I was a little 4 year old kid just, at my aunt's house because she was a big wrestling fan also. And I was I didn't understand it then. I really didn't understand it till I was about 6 or 7. And then I started really heavily getting into it. But I would watch the old WWF tapes that we had. um, and you know, I would just watch those pay-per-views. So we had WrestleMania 6, we
Hmm.
had SummerSlam 1990, we had Survivor Series 1990, Royal Rumble 91, we had WrestleMania 7, we had SummerSlam 91, and we had Survivor Series 1991. And then my dad just kind of stopped. He stopped at that point, and we I really started watching that, and then um, the NWO really turned on to me. I was
In
a
90s. Hmm.
huge NWO fan because I did have an abusive mother and stuff. And the Austin versus McMahon feud really turned me on too because, like I said, I kind of live vicariously through the NWO. I live vicariously through Austin. So I was a big Stone Cold fan. I did love Kurt Hennig. Everybody knows I love Mr. Perfect. He's my favorite wrestler. He's my hero. He made me want to get away from my mom, it took me a while because, with abuse and stuff, it's a whole other topic. But I really started getting into. I mean, I saw the whole Austin McMahon feud, so I was so I remember laughing so hard, and I told Kit this. I had to ask my mom what embalming meant because the
Yeah.
whole when Undertaker takes Austin to the funeral home and he embalms him, he's like, "Let's
Mhm.
embalm him alive." I'm like, "What is that?"
Mhm.
I didn't know what it was.
No.
My mom said my face got like white as a sheet when she told me what it was. Um, I'm
Oh,
like, "No, you can't do that.
oh.
You can't do that to Stone Cold." And then Kane saves him, and I was just like,
Yeah.
but the whole Austin McMahon feud really came into my life. And I was a big Stone Cold fan. And then Mr. Perfect came back to Royal Rumble 2002.
Mhm.
And I thought his feud with Austin should have been longer, but I think they kind of missed something in '96 because he was at the commentating table with Stone Cold, and it was kind of
Yeah.
like, there was something brewing there, but then Kurt kind of left. And rightfully so. I mean, the West
Yeah.
Texas Rednecks. I love that song, "Rap Is Crap," and I used to sing it all the time when it came out because I found out that Kurt was a country fan like myself, and I love country. I love singing it. Um, so I mean, it really helped me out. And then my wrestling stuff was over. I don't intend to watch modern wrestling because it's just without Kurt. And really, from Jim Cornette, from what I've heard, it's like it's not even worth watching. It's like he'll always say,
It's
they had to have today. I was watching or listening to the Experience, and he said they had 2 referees for rules they didn't even have.
that
Why do
must
you
have been
need to?
AEW.
Why do you need a referee at all? You know.
I'm assuming that's AEW. I haven't yeah,
Yeah, it was AEW.
that's what I thought.
Um, because
They
I don't think they got to WWF or WWE. Excuse me.
no, I mean I mean, the thing with WWE today, it's a big melodrama. I mean, especially with the Bloodline storyline and with Cody Rhodes finishing his story, it's just a big melodrama. I mean, I don't even care about the matches. I mean, the story, the Bloodline Cody thing about it, and The Rock coming back, that's what I'm interested in. It's like, okay, that's what I care about. I'm just gonna watch that, and the rest of the show, I'm not gonna watch. I just fast forward through most of the show now. All it is just this that melodrama that that I
There's a
care
lot
about.
of talking and then not a
Yeah,
lot of wrestling. Mhm.
no. I
Yeah.
mean, as Indy says, it's a soap opera for meatheads. I mean, yeah, I mean that's. And then I used to buy Pro Wrestling Illustrated when the Von Erichs were big in NWA.
I love Kerry Von Erich. And somebody
Hmm.
go back and watch SummerSlam 1990. Tell me that guy had a prosthetic foot. Where? I was
I
watching it and I'm like, he has a prosthetic foot? Where? What?
that amazing. I found that out just a few years ago. I'm like, that's
Mhm.
amazing that he
Thanks
could
to Jim
work
Cornette. I found
that.
out thanks to
y-
Jim.
Yeah, I saw that. I heard that too, and I'm like, what? How could he work so well with a prosthetic foot?
Right,
that, I mean,
right.
I couldn't tell.
No, I couldn't tell at all. And I just in one of my newest episodes, I do WrestleMania 9 with Kurt and Lex Luger. It was a trivia question.
Kurt and Lex
And
Luger.
I have bonus content in there where Luger talks about the fact that Kurt was all caffeinated up, ready for WrestleMania. And you know how you get when you're like,
Mhm.
I would do this before tests. I would, study for a test, and then I get the test and I go, oh no, what did I just learn? I just blanked out. Well, he
Yeah.
says Kurt blanked out right before the match when they hooked up. He goes, "What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing, Luger?" And I'm like, I don't know. I watched the match again and I'm like, I don't, they didn't miss a step. They didn't miss a beat. What is he talking about? I don't know. I
I'm
guess
guessing Luger had to talk him through the match somehow.
Luger was calling spots. Let's just say
Yeah.
that. And then
Mm,
I believe Kurt remembered the rest of it once they got going. But it's like me, like
mm,
I literally will, you know, blank out before a test, and I'm like, oh, but once I start reading the questions, I'm like, oh wait, now I
The
remember.
honestly, I wouldn't want Lex Luger talking me through a match. It's like he's not the best worker, so like he's just a big muscle head. So it's
That's
kind of
right.
tough for me to. But I did like his narcissist character.
He should have stayed that way.
Yeah, I mean that was I fit his personality perfectly.
Yeah. Yeah, he should have definitely stayed the narcissist because instead of making him the Hogan 2.0
That was
as they
terrible by
call it,
Vince. Ugh.
I honestly wish that they had just left him a heel and at at King of the Ring, what I and this is what I say in my episode, I think it should have been um they should have just stayed with the Kurt winning and then
Mhm.
him winning the belt at SummerSlam from Yokozuna. And then have him be the Hogan 2.0 because at least he was second generation. Now they did a run with Brett and him and Brett could, go back and forth and they could switch the belts back and forth between each other, but at least you have that option of two second generation superstars that know what the heck they're doing.
Mhm.
Luger didn't know his left from his right. He had one WCW run and then he went into bodybuilding as you said. And he was a
Yeah, he
muscled
was.
muscled guy, but that was what Vince wanted. So,
Yeah,
you
that's.
know,
But people forget he was hired by Vince to be a bodybuilder initially, not a wrestler.
yeah, there
When he
was
left
a
WCW, the
yeah,
World
there was a
Bodybuilding
world
Federation.
botting. Yep, yep,
Vince was obsessed with like, oh, I'm gonna make. But he wanted to compete with the I forget what their names are. I mean, the people who run bodybuilding. He
yeah.
thought I could take him down, like he took down all the other promoters in the '80s. But the issue was, he overpaid for all these bodybuilders. I mean, they had guaranteed contracts, and meanwhile the wrestlers didn't. So
I'm
a lot
not
of
shocked.
wrestlers were pissed off about that.
Yeah. Well, and then he started giving, actual title shots to these guys and the people who knew what they were doing are like, I'm over here. You could have asked me. I know how the business works. These muscle guys can't even do they were getting blown up as Dutch Mantel says.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
were always blowing up. Which means they were going
yeah.
Not Luger. Warrior did a couple times. They said, I've heard what was it, Dutch Mantel, and I think it was also Shane Douglas that said Warrior would be passed out on the floor, and they would just other wrestlers would just walk over him, just go and walk away, and walk, keep walking because no one was going to help
Warrior
him.
Warrior wasn't well liked in the locker room. I mean, he was.
Right, right, and
Nobody
there's
really liked him.
no, and there's a clip of Mr. Perfect and Hogan on my X, if you guys want to check that out sometime, where Kurt's jumping around and everything, and I'm
Mhm,
just like, that was Mr. Perfect. But doesn't Hogan look like the good heel he's supposed to be? Yeah, that was because of
mhm.
Kurt, not because of Hogan. It was because of Kurt.
Hogan, especially in his, because apparently he in his run when he would work Japan, he was really good in the ring. I mean, I saw some of his matches. Like, why didn't you do that here in the U.S.? Because Americans didn't care about that. Just they cared about the personality. At least in WWF.
Mhm.
Which is why he
Yeah,
never did any of that. He didn't need to. I mean, that's what he claimed. He's like, well, I didn't need to because I mean, they didn't care about that. I could just do my moves, hit the boot, drop the leg, everybody celebrate, yay, and then everybody walk away and be happy. Did he didn't need to work that Japanese style?
yeah. I'm not saying Hogan couldn't wrestle. I'm just saying that it was others that took it and just kind of ran with it, and then they're the ones who got to pushed to the wayside. Um, I even think that, and there was a lot of second generation guys that just never got their chance. Carrie's one of them.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that also could have been because of his ordeal. That Vince did. I mean, Vince gave him the IC belt just like he gave Kurt the IC belt.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, there's other second generation guys that really never got a chance. And Carrie, I think, was one of them.
I mean, Carey could have been a WWF champion. I mean, he was that good, even with a prosthetic foot, which I didn't know about until
I
just a
did
few
not know
years
that.
ago.
I'm like, Jim, no, they can't be right. Because I remember what the Kerry Kurt Hennig match, Kerry Von Erich and Mr. Perfect or Texas Tornado. Um, I that match is what made me fall in love with wrestling when I would watch it on our taped VHS uh
Yeah,
shows. That's what made me fall in love with wrestling. Watching Kurt do that match, and then at the you could always watch him do this. When he puts his hand down on the pole,
yeah.
because you're not allowed to hit the pole. That would really knock you out,
No,
and
that
that's
would
not what
be.
you wanted to do. So he put his hand
You
down and hit
just
his hand.
yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, most guys, or at least back in the day, they were able to do this
Yep.
without what's what I'm looking for, without it being obvious. They were like their
Right.
reflexes were so good. Today's guys, they just blatantly do this. The camera sees them, they just blatantly do this. Like, oh yeah, that takes away from the match.
And didn't Jim Cornette say that the camera caught Jericho blading?
Yes, the
Now
AEW
they just
camera crew.
blatantly blade in
Yeah,
front of the camera.
the camera crew is awful, and in AEW, they're a little better now, but for the most part, especially before, they're awful, and guys would just blatantly they would just blatantly do this, like without even bothering hiding it, like Jericho and the other one, uh, Dean Ambrose, or no, his name is John Moxley now, but he bleeds in every match now, so it's not even impressive when he bleeds. It's like he bleeding again, like what the
I'm
fuck.
John Moxley. I can't do the what I think
Uh-huh.
Brian Last does it better,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah, he
I'm
does
John
it well.
Moxley.
I'm like, dude, WWE doesn't has no blood, which is
Okay.
an issue.
Mhm.
AEW is way too much. It's like every other guy it's just every other match like there's a bloodbath. I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, bloodbaths are supposed to be to end the feud. No
Right.
disqualification matches too. They start feuds with no disqualification death matches. They call them. Like, come on, I can't take this anymore. This background is just too much for me. It's glitching out. Like, let me just do this. There you go. There you go. But it's just glitching. It was glitching out. For some reason, it worked well when I was on your show last week, whenever it was. But today
Yeah.
is just not working. So
Well,
yeah,
I
I
have
mean,
this is my background back here, guys. Obviously, I have pictures of Kurt Hennig all over my walls.
they start feuds. uh, They start feuds with blood matches. I'm like, or death matches. I'm like,
Mhm.
that's how you end a feud. Like for example, WWE recently had a Cody Rhodes Shinsuke Nakamura feud. It just ended last week in a bull rope match. Again, no blood, which is stupid, but a bull rope match, you would expect some blood, but nope, no blood policies, PG. So yeah, that's how you end the feud. Not by
Right.
AW would have started the feud with that, which is stupid. And
And
then what do you
Jim
do after
Cornette was
that?
kinda saying, he calls him Shaking Nakamura.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah. I don't know if that's is it because he's old? I don't even know what this person looks
well,
like. I just assume he's old.
well, Nakamura worked in Japan for years, and
Mhm.
when he got hired, I had no idea who he was either. It was like, oh, a Japanese guy, okay. But yeah, he's kind of older. He's like 45 ish, something like that.
Okay.
So he looks kind. His physique isn't the best either.
Okay.
Yeah, his physique isn't the best, so it's like that's why he probably calls him that. In 43, he's 43, but he
He's
looks
43.
older. Yeah, he
Okay.
looks older,
Okay.
which is why. So yeah, but he looks older. He's okay. I mean, he works that strong style, which I hate. Mhm. That Japanese strong style, I don't like it. It's like it's
Okay.
just it's just chopping and standing there and taking offense. Like AEW, they do it horribly. I mean, it's even worse there. But it's like they'd stand there and they trade. Oh, chop. Okay, now you chop me. It's like that. It's like, wait, you're not supposed to do that. It's supposed to be, you're supposed to try to counter moves, not just take
Right,
it. Like
right. Well,
it's
if someone
stupid.
would chop Kurt and then, he would turn around and chop them, that's different. I mean, because you could hear the
Yeah,
chops. Every time he does, I'm like, "Ow."
yeah. Those chops are not fake. I mean, they really could mess you up. I
I
mean,
wouldn't wanna do that.
yeah. Yeah, but they blatantly just take chops back and forth. Awful, just awful wrestling. In AEW, they do it, but so much worse. I mean, it's like it's so blatant. They stand there. Oh yeah, chop me, and like, ugh, and I'm like, you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to take offense. Like, oh yeah, now you hit me. No, I hit you now. And blatantly, like just standing there and taking each other's offense. I'm like, that's not wrestling. That's just you being a mark and taking offense for no reason.
And what did I see on X? There was a guy kissing another guy for no reason.
That was John Moxley again.
Oh God,
He was in WWE for
why does
years.
he have a wife if he is going to kiss men?
That's not the first time he's done that. He's kissed another guy before in the ring. He had a match with an independent match with some gay dude, or blatantly, like, he would just dress up, like, I forget his name, but Effie, some shit like that. He had a match with Effie, and and his gimmick is to literally, he would I don't know what word I can use here on YouTube, but he would pleasure himself
Okay.
in the ring, like literally start pleasuring himself, and he did it with Moxley like behind him, and then Moxley just kissed him. I saw
Oh
this and I'm like, oops, I just hit my mic, but I'm like, just like, he's a WWE guy. He learned how to wrestle properly, and
Mhm.
he was good in WWE. He wasn't great, but he wasn't horrible either. Now he's just j- jacking around, with guys, and he's wrestling independent matches for no reason. He didn't need to do that. He's wrestling with these scrubs like Effie.
Yeah.
His name is Effie. I remember now. I was like, who the fuck is Effie? Why is Moxley working with this guy? And taking his offense. Like, he's taking his offense like he's supposed to be a threat. And it's like, it just annoys me so much.
I can't believe that. It's just what happened to the good old wrestling that we grew up with? I mean, that's what dead and gone now because everyone wants to be like, you know, what do they call them? Circus Dole or gymnasts. They're gymnasts,
Yes.
male gymnasts, female gymnasts, and they always get hurt. Jim Cornette talks about this extensively. They're like, "Oh, this person's hurt, that person's
The
hurt. They just totally killed
injuries are way up.
themselves."
Injuries are way up in wrestling,
Right.
especially in AEW. Injuries are there. Half their roster is hurt, it seems like.
Mhm.
Why? Because they do stupid shit.
Yeah, they literally jump off of when Jim took the bump off of the
Scaffold.
scaffold, thank
Yeah.
you.
Mhm.
It was for a reason. This is
Yeah.
just this is blatantly like stop
And
doing that.
I love that story with he blatantly said, "Okay, you're gonna hold on to my foot," because he's scared of heights. So you're gonna hold on to my
Yeah.
foot, and then I'm
Him
gonna
and
do
Jerry
this.
Lawler are deathly scared of heights.
Yeah, and Big Bubba Rogers supposed to catch him, but he didn't catch him, and he just landed like right next to him. He's like,
That's the big boss man, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
He
That was
eventually would
big.
be the big oh no, he
Yeah,
missed.
yeah.
Oh
Big Bubba
no.
Rogers was like, he didn't catch him. It's like, oh, Jim, you fell too quickly. I couldn't catch you. He has that voice, that kind of like that pitchy voice, and it's like, you were too fast, Jimmy. And it's like, oh, carry my ass. I think he fucked up his knee or something. His knee went the
Yeah,
wrong
yeah.
way.
Yep.
He's like,
Um,
carry my ass backstage, Bubba. He's like, okay, he carried him backstage.
oh man. Yeah, you'll never see and then like he was talking about how he was in a white suit and he was going to go babyface and Paul Heyman smacks him in the face, breaks his nose with a
That
phone.
Yeah, that was the
Boop, and he's
original.
just bleeding all over the
Yeah,
white suit and everything.
that was the original Midnight Express angle that Jim pitched to Dusty Rhodes, who was the booker then. And
Mhm.
Dusty was like, "Oh, that's a good idea. It's a good idea, kid. I don't can't do his voice, but that's a good idea. So let's do it." And they
You know,
did it.
ironically, Jim is the only one who can do Dusty perfectly, except for
Yeah,
that guy that you were showing about that can do his impression. Jim
yeah,
Cornette, it's like I'm like, "What did Dusty walk in the room or something? What in the
yeah,
world?"
yeah. Because Jim worked with Dusty for years, and he swore by him as booker. He's like, he talks about how he's a fantastic booker
Well, I
because
wasn't
Dusty.
saying you had a broken nose there, Earl. I'm sorry,
No,
Angel.
no, no.
I've had a
I,
broken nose sometimes. That hey, I haven't broken my nose, but I've had nosebleeds. So
Oh, I had a nosebleed on air 2 weeks was it
yeah,
no, not last week, but the week
they're like,
before.
take it, Kit.
Yeah,
I was
yeah, it
like,
was
oh
like, "Oh, yeah,
no, Angel.
yeah, I had a nosebleed on air, like, a couple weeks ago when Kit was on, and luckily he was on because he had plenty, like, "Go ahead, you take it for 5 minutes," and I knew he could handle it, so it was like, it's not like, he couldn't handle it, so I just cleaned up and came back, but yeah, I mean, and going back to that angle, I think TBS had banned blood. which is why he got in trouble for that.
Funny,
And
ironic.
yeah, and he didn't he cut himself. He did it, and he's like, oh shit, there's no blood. So he's like, and then by the time the 7 second delay popped up, he was like covered in blood. He had a white suit on. He
Yep.
covered in blood.
Yep.
And Dusty is like, "Oh, good job, kid, but I said a little blood, not a lot." Now that's what he got fired as Booker a few weeks later. I think I'm not sure it was connected to that, but TBS fired him as Booker.
Well, Dusty, I remember when Jim was talking about he was doing a promo about Ronnie Garvin, and he was saying how, oh, he lit him up like the Challenger. Or yeah, was that the one that blew up
Yeah, it
in
was '86.
'86?
Yeah, that's when it
When
blew up. Yeah.
our year of birth.
Hmm.
And he said, I Ronnie Garvin went up like the Challenger, and Dusty, I mean, all the lights went out, everything, and Dusty's like,
Hmm.
kid, you can't talk about that. Don't talk about that. Do it again, but you can't talk about that. I was like, Jim, oh my gosh.
Well, he's a heel manager, so he was gonna go off. He was gonna compare it to stuff like that, but he had to be stopped by the Booker. Like, no, you can't say that shit. It just happened. It's like,
Right. And I talk about that when I do have another well, my newest episode that's coming out tomorrow, guys. Tomorrow, episode 21 will be WrestleMania 6 in Canada, but I do have a WrestleMania 7 uh episode coming out where Kurt talks about the Rodney King, because that had just happened and it was
hmm
still dominating the news
oh
feeds.
yes, yes. It was
So if
92-ish.
YouTube gets upset, unfortunately, there's nothing I can do. They mentioned it and they talk
Yeah,
about it in the promo. So there's really nothing I can do. I can't change their promo. So,
yeah. It's
well, it'll be interesting to see how they kind of react to the fact that, I mean, that was a real current event, because in 91 that had just happened in
hmm
January.
yeah.
And it's just ironic that Kurt's match was with the big boss man at WrestleMania 7, and they talk about the whole Rodney King thing.
Rodney King. Yeah, I mean that happened. I was 4,
I was
so I
also
don't know.
4.
Yeah, I don't remember much about it, but the OJ Simpson thing. I mean, getting off on a tangent happened in '96 when he
90
went on the car chase.
Was it 95 or was it 96?
'95. Yeah, I remember that because it cut away from the NBA Finals that year.
Oh, of course.
And I was a Knicks fan, and the Knicks were it's '95, the Knicks were in '95, now I remember. It cut away
Mhm.
from the finals while he was chased, like, "Come on, what? Really?" I mean, OJ had to do this now and couldn't wait an hour or 2 to be chased by the
Oh,
police?
bam. There's a lot of people that still think he got away with that. I don't know. I was way too young to understand the whole
Yeah, I was
O.J. Simpson.
too, but looking back as an adult and watching that, Johnny Cochran got him as fantastic lawyer, I'm telling you. Because the whole thing, if the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit, and they acquitted him. I mean, because the glove didn't fit him apparently, so there's
Mhm.
no way he could have done it. I'm like, yeah, he could have probably forced it on somehow. I mean, it doesn't mean he didn't do it. I mean, he convinced that jury through sheer personality and performance. I mean, it wasn't. I mean, it seemed like to me the prosecution had a solid case, but he was like, "Oh no, if the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit." It rhymes too, and people were like, "Oh yeah, yeah, we just acquit him."
Um, what I found interesting was Dana Carvey, h he would always he cracked jokes about this, and he's like, that guy just goes home and goes, "Mother." Because he was just so soft spoken, and he would always touch his forehead like this, and very soft spoken. But he's like, that guy goes home and goes, but yeah, I just the other thing that I wanted to kind of touch on is there are some new developments coming out with Vince McMahon, and there's going to be for the next year, year and a half, 2 years,
Oh, we have plenty of
because
content if we
we
just
have
focus
plenty
on
of
him.
content if we just focused on him.
Yeah,
So,
which
according to Johnny Laurinaitis, he's saying that the whole Ashley, what's her name? What's her last name?
Massaro,
Massaro. Thank
Massaro.
you. That whole thing was not a cover up, because um, they didn't cover it up.
Yeah, that makes
Wait,
no
what?
sense. He just
Well,
repeated himself.
yeah, he's like, "Well, we didn't cover it up." I'm like, "You obviously don't know what the definition of a cover up is at this point."
Well, Laurinaitis isn't the smartest, isn't the
He isn't
brightest, light bulb
the
out there. Mhm.
he isn't the sharpest tool in the drawer, right?
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Instead, I
Gotcha,
just butchered
gotcha,
it, but yeah,
gotcha.
he's
Well,
not the smartest guy in the room.
right, and what I was telling my guy as I was coming out of work, because I was trying to
Mhm.
listen to this, is the thing is this woman got victimized twice.
Yeah.
First of all, she was, things were done to her for YouTube purposes.
Mhm.
Things were done to her, and then she actually spoke up about it, and they basically said, "Well, shut up about it. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
We don't
Yeah.
care. Nobody cares. No one will
Yeah.
believe you anyway." So
They
this
were.
lady felt like she could not turn to anybody because she had already turned to her boss and said, "Hey boss, this happened to me, and is there something we can do about it?" Instead of
No.
Vince and Johnny Laurinaitis saying, "You know what? We're going to fight for you. We're going to have this investigated. We're going to make sure these people pay for their crime." They didn't do that. So
They. Mm,
in a way, how I would feel is I would feel victimized twice. Like literally, they might as well have done things to me too, Johnny Laurinaitis and Vince.
yeah.
And it made me feel bad for her because this is why women don't speak up.
Yeah. That's
Because
exactly why.
literally they'll tell us, "Oh, be quiet, you just want money." Because this Janelle lady, I believe, just wants money. And Ashley, I don't think that about her at all. Now, I don't know who she was. I never even heard of her until this all came out. So,
Yeah. She was a Diva Search winner,
okay.
which was
So,
that contest that Kevin Dunn ran. It was his idea.
okay. But what's I mean, we're all human. I get that. But and even there are bad people even in the military.
Yeah.
They were like, "Oh, be quiet because we want to preserve our relationship with the military." Well, Vince, Johnny, there are bad people even in the military, which is one
Yeah.
of the reasons why I refuse to go into the military myself
This
because I knew bad
happened.
things were going to happen to me.
This happened in 2006. It would have been the George W. Bush administration.
Right.
So, yeah, the military back then were a lot more, they would have not been happy with WWE if this was reported. It's not like the military today, where they probably would have taken it more seriously
Right.
because it wasn't investigated until 2019 when the military investigated, and of course, they didn't find anything because it happened almost 13 years ago by the time they investigated.
And when did she self-delete?
2016, I believe.
Yeah.
So her lawyer came because she was involved in a concussion lawsuit against WWE, and her lawyer had her talk about a bunch of stuff. It was sworn affidavits, and they never used that because it didn't pertain to the concussion case. But after she did what she did and passed away, then it came out. The lawyer released it, and that's when it was investigated. And this
Mhm.
is when WWE formally denied it. Like, no, 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 we never found out about this because Vince is still in charge. So of course he would deny it in 2019. Like, oh, this never happened. She never told us.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we can go on about her a little bit. I mean, she won the Diva Search in 2005. She was hired and immediately put in the ring. She was a model. She never wrestled. Didn't even train. And they just stuck her in the ring. Like, oh yeah, good luck. You have a match with I forget who her first match was against. Doesn't matter. She had a match against one of the other girls and she never
Mhm.
worked in her life. She never even took a bump. And they just stuck her in the ring like, oh yeah, go ahead, good luck. And she
Uh,
got hurt.
right, and I think
Mm.
this stems back to the fact where, uh Jim Cornette was talking about Vince Russo, how he would find underwear models in magazines and he would call their agents and say, "Hey, let's give them a tryout." And I think
Hmm.
one woman passed out because she was an underwear model. She had never done wrestling in her life.
She
I
wasn't even an
mean,
athlete.
she wasn't even an athlete. She just
A
would,
model, yeah.
she was just a model who looked good on, in magazines. Well, there's a lot of enhancing that magazines can do to make chicks look good.
Yeah,
Okay? You don't have to be, really thin and nowadays you can be really fat and be a supermodel, but
yeah. The times have changed. But
see, I
I
don't know
think
how to
that
feel about that because I am an average woman.
yeah,
I've been called an average woman. I'm a woman.
yeah,
I got the same thing those chicks have, and I'm just a woman. I'm just a
yeah.
woman.
I think you're referring to Laurinaitis because he's the one that's director of talent relations, and he's the one that would hire these underwear models. At least the way I heard it. It
Right.
wasn't Russo.
It wasn't Russo, but Russo would have those really crazy, weird ideas. They were
The
talking
bra and
about that.
panty match,
Right. They were talking about this
Mhm,
where there's like a slap, something slap where women were just slap each other around or something. It's
cat
something with
fights.
yeah, it's something
Mhm.
weird with Vince Russo where he had some really sick fantasies. Let's
Yeah, it
put it
was
that
Vince
way.
Russo. That and Jerry Lawler, cat fight, cat fight, cat fight. He would love it, And commentary. I'm like, yeah, I don't care about women's wrestling, and especially back then because they didn't really focus on it. It's more like what they would call like the popcorn match, at least in live
Yeah.
events. They just throw them out there, and they would assume fans would go up and buy popcorn and merchandise and stuff, and then come back for the men's once the men came back to the ring.
Right, right.
Mm.
And it was almost like a joke. It was like
Yeah, they treated it as a joke for
they
years.
treated it as a joke, right? And Sherry Martel was talking about this. They
Mm.
just kind of dissolved women wrestling in the 80s because it
Yeah,
was all a joke to them. And then the 90s came around and then the divas,
in
came
the late
in
'90s. Yeah,
and they couldn't even wrestle. Sable
no,
refused to wrestle Sunny because she didn't want to she didn't want to wrestle. She just wanted to look good.
I think she was women's champion somehow. Vince put the belt on her, and
Yep.
I'm like, okay. But
Yep.
then I think it was Luna Vachon. She was supposed to hit her in the back with the belt, and she refused to take that bump. Instead, she barely, it's like she just pushed it onto her, and she fell. I'm like, that was a terrible
Mhm.
bump. I was like, yeah, Sable
Luna was
sucks.
a
So of course,
wrestler because her uncle
yeah,
was a wrestler.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mad Dog Vachon. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And that's terrible. That's absolutely terrible that, Luna had to put up with that. I feel bad for her that she had to put up with Sable. I wasn't
Yeah. I'm like,
much for any of the wrestling women because obviously I was a girl. I was looking at the guys, but
yeah,
but
yeah.
no, like being wanting to be a wrestler myself, I just feel like, well, there's no chance because I'm not a diva. I'm an average woman.
Yeah, but it seems like it is today. They take it. WWE takes women's wrestling a lot more seriously. You see, like
It only took them 30 years.
Rhea Ripley's, the Becky Lynch's, the Bianca Belairs, the Charlotte Flairs.
Flares, yep.
Yeah, I mean there's so many girls now who can actually wrestle and wrestle well that it's like okay, Triple H. It's Triple H honestly who made women's wrestling more serious in WWE. It wasn't Vince because
And
Triple
that's a
H
good and
ran.
a bad thing. It only took him
Yeah.
30 years, and now I'm
Hmm.
too old to go into wrestling because, I'm 37.
Yeah.
To learn now would be pointless. Um,
Hmm.
but even when I was a teenager or 18, I would still say that, I was sort of into it, but by this time I was kind of like, you know what, I'm done. 2004, I just kind of cut it off and I'm like, they did all kinds of weird things with Austin and it just didn't even it was like, okay, I'm done.
Well,
We're done
when
with
when
this.
when Austin turned heel, I think it was 2002. That's when a lot of people kind of were done with it.
Hightailed it. Yeah.
Yeah, because nobody wanted to boo Austin,
No.
and
People would
nobody
not
wanted to
boo
see
him.
Austin shake McMahon's hand. It was like shaking the hand of your worst enemy.
Right.
I'm like, so it made no sense. I mean, it was like I was like, why is he shaking? No, he couldn't have turned heel. I mean, I was like, I thought it was some sort of like a swerve or something. And the next night he would stun McMahon like he usually does. Okay, everything's normal now. No, he just straight up just turned heel, and then all of a
Right.
sudden he was like, he would hug McMahon and he would fucking do shit like he would
Playing
play the
music.
guitar.
Yeah,
He
but
would
he
play,
couldn't play.
yeah,
And
he
then,
would
they
have
had
his
that whole Kurt Angle thing, and I hate that dude. I really did not like that dude. I did not like Kurt Angle. And yeah, they would have like Kurt and Steve vie for his affection, for Vince's affection. I'm like, oh my god,
Tho
get over it, guys.
those segments were funny, but at the same time, they were like, it just makes no sense. And Old Man Barker said that killed the whole business. Yeah, I
It
mean,
did,
Austin
yeah.
turning heel, yeah, that WWE's never been the same after that, and it happened 20 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, that really ruined, and like you had said, people would not boo Austin. I
No,
wouldn't boo Austin, I
they don't
couldn't,
wa
we had
no.
been in love with him for 2 years, and, he did all this stuff to Vince McMahon, and, his book says that was even he says in an interview, that was the wrong thing to do. He said he regrets that. If he could take
It
that
was
back.
it was his idea. He approached Vince with that because he thought his
Mhm.
character was getting stale, and I'm like, he was kind of like, I don't know what he was thinking there. It was like he wanted to try something different, which is fine, but
And it
he was
was,
still
"Oh, I'm a
over.
sellout."
Yeah, he was still over. It wasn't like the
Mhm.
fans that stopped caring about him. No, he was still over. So I don't know. It wasn't like Hogan. When Hogan turned heel in '96, kind of made sense because the fans were sick of him by then. His
They were
baby
sick of
face,
that Hulkamania.
yeah, the baby face Hulkamania America, Love
Right.
America character. So it made sense for him to turn in '96, but it didn't make sense for Austin to turn then because one, he shook Vince McMahon's hand, which
Mhm.
nobody wanted to see, and two, nobody wanted to boo him. So
Mhm.
it just made no sense at that point when
And
they
they could
do
have
that.
taken it to another level. I mean, they did with the higher power thing, but they could have taken it to another level too of, okay, Austin got the belt back, but let's take it a different way where we could, put Austin in these scenarios of, Vince trying to get him again. That's what people wanted to see. That's why it went on for 2 years. Yeah,
Yeah.
you had Austin versus McMahon in steel cage, but do you remember any other matches with Stone Cold and Vince McMahon? Very rarely did that happen after that. They could have had
Yeah.
an Austin versus McMahon in a steel cage part 2 or even in just a part 2. It didn't have to be like in a steel cage.
I think there were 2 matches. There was one on Raw where he forced Austin to tie his hand behind his back, his stunner hand.
Right, but that wasn't really a match
And no,
because
that was yeah,
Dude
that
Love
was
came
more
out and
yeah.
interfered, yeah.
So technically, it was
That
booked
was
as
their
a
little
match.
tease, like teasing
Yeah.
a carrot in
Mhm.
front of your face saying, "Hey, we're
Yeah.
gonna have Austin versus McMahon. We're gonna tease you."
Mhm.
But then they didn't really go through with it.
No, and they didn't. And then they only had 2 matches to say technically in that run, and I'm like, they coulda had more matches, they coulda probably sold more pay-per-views just off a few matches. I understand Vince is not a worker, he never really wrestled until that match, but he's actually
But
pretty
he
good in
wanted to
that
be.
match.
He
He
wanted to
actually
be.
I know, his dad wouldn't let him be a wrestler, but
Mm-mm. Nope.
so, I don't know, he probably would have been a good character, at least, because if he learned because his match with Austin, it was good. It was like, wow, Austin carried him, at the same time, he was able to do like, that spot when he jumped off the cage and went to the table, I'm like, "He's 50 something years old, he's taking that
Mhm.
bump." I mean, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
and that's where, when you see Austin down talking to him, giving him lip service, so to speak,
Mhm.
um, literally, he was saying, "Good job, kid. You did good."
Yeah.
Um,
I was impressed. I'm like, "Wow, he took that bump in his 50s." I don't know how many 50-year-old men would do that.
and "Don't take me, don't take me. Where am I? Vince, do you know where you are right now?" I'm thinking, I don't think he knows what day it is.
Not right now in that moment.
Not after that. He just kinda, like, hit his back and hit his head, and I'm like,
Yeah,
"That dude
because
is dead."
he was supposed to go through the table,
Right.
like you see now today in wrestling, the middle of the table, and it would break. But he landed in the corner in the
In
edge
the
because
corner, ooh, and that
he
kinda
could
did you ever see the Rick Rude bump that he takes in Japan? How he messed up his back?
I don't think so, no, I've never seen that.
He was on a platform, and his back goes like that. Like, you just see
Oh,
him go like that, and you're like, oh no, that's not how you're supposed to bend." And it
no.
wasn't. That's how he messed up his back real bad. I
Eh,
watched it, I think on X one time, they
uh-huh.
actually showed it, or no, it was on YouTube. They actually showed he goes like that. I'm like, "Ow, ow." I'd be
Oh,
like,
yeah, that
"I'm I'm I'm never going to wrestle again. But Rick was a tough guy, so
Yeah,
it
he
doesn't surprise me that he was trying to come back.
yeah, I mean, it was all and that Vince bump was like yeah, I think the table was too far because I remember or I don't remember, but I remember somebody telling that they moved the table back before the show started or something like that. But yeah, the table was back more than it usually is. Yes,
Yes,
she's a Mr. Perfect fan, by the way.
yes. I will explain the reason why I'm a Mr. Perfect fan is because I saw his match with Kerry Von Erich when I was about 6 or 7. Technically, I would have been 4 in that match when that match occurred in 1990 at SummerSlam. And I fell in love with Kurt's wrestling after that. I mean, it's just, he is absolutely phenomenal in every aspect of the way. And he was second generation and he was just a great guy out of the ring. I've heard nothing but great things in every interview I've heard of any other wrestler, even Steve Williams or Steve Austin. Um, I think I have on it's my blooper compilation or it's my rib compilation of Kurt just ribbing everybody. And Austin had said, I never saw that guy in a bad mood. I never saw him without a smile on his face. Um, and I just saw a picture on X of Steve Williams or Steve Austin and Kurt along with Wahoo and I I don't know. I don't know who the other guy was, but it's Kurt in the
Um,
middle and then Austin
yeah,
on the right. And I was like, "Oh, it's Kurt." And of course it's Austin too. And someone said, "Oh, darn that fanny pack. Really? You need a fanny pack?" I'm like, "Oh, that was popular in the 90s. I don't know about you
yeah.
guys, but
My stepfather, used to carry those fanny pack, and again, that's a thing at the time. Yeah, the Lloyd de London policies. Those things they don't sell those things anymore.
no, they stopped giving them to wrestlers
Yeah.
after a lot of them were well, and this is why Rick Rude couldn't come back. Even Kurt admitted that in my one episode. I read
Hmm.
Kurt's letter about Rick Rude and barely got through it because it's really
Yeah.
it's an emotional letter, but it's very sweet. And he talks about how he couldn't come back because of insurance reasons. And I was just saying in that episode that if I had the money, I'd give it to Rick. And people are like, "Really? You would do that for Rick Rude?" I'm like, "Heck yeah, in a second." Like that. Because the world missed out on a Rick Rude part 3, and that's
Yeah.
why. We deserve to have a Rick Rude even if he shook his dick ass. We still deserve to have a ravishing Rick Rude, but he was Kurt's manager in WCW, so
Yeah, he never had that run in the late '90s. I mean, he was DX's insurance man, which is a reference to his Lloyd's of London policy.
right.
And then he left after Brett got screwed WCW, as we talked about, I think, in your episode last week. And he did both shows because WWF was recorded on Raw.
And he literally told Eric Bischoff admits this on his 83 Weeks podcast. Rick didn't request or ask to come back. He said, "I'm coming back, no questions asked."
Yeah,
And he was like, okay.
I'm like,
By
yeah,
the
I
way,
mean,
Owen, no. Owen, are you saying Owen was better wrestler or Owen was a better ribber? Which one are you saying,
uh,
old man Barker? Because you're wrong on both occasions.
Owen, not Owen was special. I mean, Owen was good. I mean, I prefer Bret Hart, as I've talked about, but I like their feud, the brother versus brother match they had.
All around, huh? Nope. Mr. Perfect, baby. Mr. Perfect is perfect. Brett was great. Brett was great, but he wasn't perfect.
Yeah, I don't agree with Owen. I mean, Owen was good. He always was Brett's little brother. It wasn't
Yeah.
like he wasn't going to be like a big star on his own because Brett was around. And
Well,
even when he
yeah.
left, he became the Blue Blazer. That they put him under that stupid mask, and it was like,
And that was one of the matches that we just did along in on my episode. at Trump Plaza at WrestleMania. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
sorry, I'm not allowed to say that. Sorry, forget that. Um, he had just done that at WrestleMania 5 when they, was Blue Blazer versus Mr. Perfect. And in Brett's book, I read this that he was like, Kurt took such good care of Owen. I mean, he made sure that they didn't do stupid moves, or they weren't getting into trouble, or they weren't, blading for no reason. I think there was a no blood policy at that point. I don't know, but
Yeah, in the early '90s, it would have been
yeah.
because of all the steroid controversy and child the child scandal they had in the early '90s with the ring announcer and Pat Patterson and stuff. So that was going on that time. Vince was on trial. So yeah, they were testing rigorously for drugs and steroids, and there was no blood policy back then. That was rescinded by the late '90s, but back then it would have been a no blood policy.
And that's because, yeah. I mean, if you accidentally caught yourself like Kurt did in '93 in that loser leave town match with Ric Flair, that was a oops. He just hit the post and
Yeah.
and he was bleeding. And the ref, if you look at the match, the ref is kind of like, what do we do? Oh my gosh, what do we do? He's bleeding. What do we do? What do we
Uh
do?
huh.
What do we do? And I think Kurt was like, just keep the match going, you know.
Yeah.
He
It's
just he
like
just jumped at the wrong. He was trying to do what Flair had done, which is jump over the rope and then kind
yeah.
of do like a Ric Flair kind of move, but he kind of fell down the ring
Mhm.
post, and the ring post got him, and it was
Yeah.
like
I
a
mean,
oopsie.
I think it was WrestleMania 7. Brett had the match with Roddy Piper for the Intercontinental title, and there was blood there too. And but they claimed it was an accident, which it wasn't.
Hmm.
Brett would admit that he actually bladed, but but they hit it enough where Vince didn't see it, so he believed them. But Ric Flair and Randy Savage for the world title,
Yeah.
Vince fined them both for the blood. They both bladed clearly, but or Rick did. Ric Flair did, I think. He bladed, and and he got fined, even though I think I didn't. I watched the match back. I didn't see where he bladed, but I guess Vince didn't buy it from them, so they both got fined for that, even though Brett didn't.
Yeah, I don't think he fined Kurt for that because I think it was just a oops. Because I mean, if you look at
Yeah,
the ref is looking around like, what do I do? I don't know what to do. Kurt, what should I do? And
keeps
I'm guessing
fucking
Kurt just
going.
said, just keep going, just keep
Yeah,
going
when
the
you
match.
know what they would do, not recently, but when they first went PG and there was accidental blood, they would stop the match. The referee put gloves on, and they would patch up the bleeding before the match would continue. That was
Mm.
Vince's policy
Hmm.
back when they went PG in 2008 or 9. And for many years afterwards, they would stop the match and they would stop the blood, and then they would keep going, which takes you out of the flow of the match. So it just ruined the match.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that doesn't make it. I mean, wish they had done that to Kurt because, I mean, no offense, but I mean, his whole thing with Flair was, loser's gonna leave town, and it was a very physical match, and that's how it was meant to be
Yeah.
between those two because they were so. And I just got a magazine. I'm gonna show it to you.
Okay.
I just got my magazine here up
Oh
for
wow.
grabs. This is when Kurt went to WCW, and he was DDP's partner. And I just got this today, so I'm gonna check out some of the articles that are on here. But yeah, it was, you know, I don't remember Kurt bleeding again till I think he bleeded in one of his WCW matches. I don't because I don't remember any other blood coming from Kurt at that point.
Yeah.
Um, but he did it very rarely in WCW too. The most I've ever seen, and this is funny, but I've actually gotten to go back and see some of the territories. So
Yeah.
Kurt was in Portland. Sorry, I'm just trying to move. Kurt was in Portland, and I think he bled the most in there, and then he bled again in a match, a 60-minute Iron match, what they would call an Iron Man match with
Yeah.
a Nick Bockwinkel, but he bled in there too. So Kurt didn't really bleed unless it was like Portland, Oregon. it seemed like he was bleeding all the time. If you go back and watch some of his matches with
Yeah.
the Sheik, and there's also somebody else. Buddy Rose makes him bloody a lot.
Hmm.
And then if you go to AWA, of course, he was bloody with Nick Bockwinkel. Brock
Yeah.
Lesnar. Oh, pfft, I hate
Brock
Brock
Lesnar
Lesnar.
is one province east of here.
I'm so sorry. I hate Brock Lesnar. I hate that dude.
Bro, yeah, I mean, what was I gonna say? Yeah, I don't remember right now, but yeah, I mean, it's something here that I saw. I don't know, I don't remember right now, but yeah, I mean, uh, as back in the territory days, there was a lot more blood because oh no, I know what it was. It was you talked about a 60-minute Iron Man match. That always was called. It wasn't even a gimmick. Vince made it into a gimmick match with him and Shawn and Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels at
Hmm.
WrestleMania 12, I think it was. And that was like, but
Hmm.
60 minutes. That's usually ring announcers would say this contest has 60-minute time limit. So that was, and
And
they
they
would
wouldn't go
go.
the full 60 minutes
Yeah, they occasionally like they would, but it was called the broad. You went
occasionally.
Broadway, yeah. You
Brett
just
talks
went
about in
60-minute
his
Broadway.
Yeah, well, Brett talks about in his book when he was in Stampede Wrestling, he would go 60 minutes every night. So I
Yeah.
don't think it's just and even Kurt would have like, 20, 30-minute matches in Portland. I mean, because they were always doing the 2 out of 3 falls. So I mean, those would take a little bit longer to do. Um they weren't even close. They weren't even close.
That's
Go
the
look
plane
up
ride from hell.
Go look up the JBL interview. He talks about Brock Lesnar and Kurt weren't even near the door. He saw the whole thing from where he was. JBL said, and I quote, they weren't even near the door. So where people got that they were near that plane door, no way. JBL says um, that
Yeah,
they
I
weren't
know.
even near it.
There were so many stories about that. Hell, we can do a whole episode about that.
Oh yeah, we
That
can.
and we can do a whole episode of Montreal Screwjob. Who knew what? Who did not? Why? So but yeah, I mean this. So yeah, I mean that's okay if JBL said so.
I'm just telling you what he said.
Yeah, I mean that's his.
But
There's
there's
so
also
many.
Justin Credible also was on that plane, and he said that they weren't near the door. So are you gonna believe Justin Credible if you don't believe JBL? What about Justin Credible? And they also said that I mean Vince had just done this with Kurt Angle the week before,
Yeah,
and
the
they were
plane
actually
ride.
closer to the door than Kurt and Brock were.
Yeah, Vince always thought of himself as a tough guy, and he would challenge his wrestlers all the time. And apparently, he would do decently, but I remember the story. I'm not sure you heard the story how Vince and Harley Race fought in a restaurant. Remember that? You heard that story?
No, but I heard Harley Race was a badass.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mess with Harley
So
Race.
I think it was in '86. He was the NWA, or was it before that? He was the NWA champion. No, it was 82, 83 ish. The first Starcade. What was it, 83 or 84? It was the first Starcade. Doesn't matter what year it was, honestly.
Yeah, okay.
And Vince tried to get Harley Race to leave the Jim Crockett and go over to him for a bunch of money. He turned him down, and literally in the bathroom, Vince tried to fight him, and Harley Race kicked his ass. And Linda McMahon had to pick Vince up from the restaurant. He was all it bloodied up and cut up and stuff. So fighting Harley Race didn't go well for Vince. So,
There's a story from Brett, old man Barker. uh, Brett talks about in his book where the Legion of Doom had just come into WWF, and Vince was saying goodbye or not going to be able to be with the boys anymore. He wasn't going to be hanging with the boys. So Vince was drunk, and Hawk was drunk, and Animal were drunk. And
Vince
Vince
took all their finishes.
took
Yeah.
their finishes because that's what he wanted to
Uh-huh.
do with the boys one last time.
Yeah.
And Brett said Vince could barely stand up after that.
Yeah, everybody
That's
gave Vince
right.
their finishers.
Yep,
Bret Hart they gave him their heart attack, and
yep,
he did it snug on purpose to hurt Vince because the
to
only
hurt
chance I
Vince.
get to hurt Vince, yes, fuck
Yeah,
it.
and they said, Vince was bloody and bleeding, and actually, here's a funny story about Shane. Uh, Brett talks about this in his book, that, Shane McMahon tried to hit on Julie, who is Brett's ex. He tried, and then Brett said, "Well, I felt like I had a duty, so I pushed him up against the wall and said, 'Don't touch my wife. Don't be messing with my wife.'" And I was like, "Okay, Brett, you screwed anything that moved." So, and he admits it in the book. He's like, "Yeah, I was really a dog. He just was screwing this woman, screwing that woman." So
Yeah,
that's not me saying that. That's Bret Hart, not
yeah,
me.
yeah. He said that in his book, and yeah, I mean Vince was like, I think it was 92 ish when that happened, and that was around the time when he's being investigated for the steroid thing, and so he thought he was going to jail, so that's why he did that. Like, because I remember it was the trial took place in 93 ish, four, something like that. No, it was 94 because Hogan
94,
just
yeah.
left in WCW and he came back to
Mhm.
testify.
Yep.
So
And he was testifying against Vince.
yeah, but
Isn't that ironic?
yeah, and Vince hired him back in 2002. I'm like, I mean, if he hired Hogan back, anybody could be forgiven by him.
Apparently,
They-
that's why, Brett was that was later on, though. I think it was 2010 when Brett came back.
yeah, it was 2010 ish, and he and Shawn Michaels made up, and even though Brett's still kind of bitter about the Montreal Screwjob when
And
if
rightfully
he
so.
talks about it. Yeah, yeah.
Brett has every right to be, upset with that. But yeah, I saw the meeting that Sean and Brett had, and Brett was talking about his grandkids, and Sean's like, "Well, my girls aren't that old yet. I don't have to worry about that yet because my girls aren't that old." No, his girls were like, I think his girls are teenagers, but they may be adults now.
Yeah,
Um,
I think they are. I don't.
yeah.
Shawn Michaels is still in WWE today. He's the booker for NXT, which is the developmental brand that WWE has.
And I tried to watch an interview with him. They were talking about the whole Vince McMahon thing.
Yeah,
I couldn't sit through it. I'm just like, I don't really like this guy. Even though he technically he went hunting with Stone Cold one
yeah.
time. And then they had that McMillan River Adventures. Did you ever see that with Shawn Michaels?
Um, no,
He
I
had
heard
Stone
about
Cold
it.
on. Yeah, he had Stone Cold on, and then he also had Triple H. They went gator hunting. I'm like, Triple H and a gator? He can't even
Yeah,
handle his wife.
he's from Connecticut. I mean, I don't know why he would go gator hunting. It's like, or
Well, I know
no,
why Sean would. Sean was from San Antonio.
yeah. So that's
Uh-huh.
but Triple H is like either from Connecticut or New
Yeah,
Hampshire or something.
yeah. I
He's
think he was born and raised in Connecticut.
yeah. So I think even him and Sean are still good friends, which is why he probably did it. But
As
he's out of his element there.
as Triple H put it, he said their wives say that they act like two old women when they get together. Him and Sean.
Mm,
That's what Triple H said about Shawn Michaels. Um, I, I just I really didn't like Triple H. I only liked Triple H when he was with Kurt, and that was very very brief,
yeah,
right
because
before Kurt left for WCW.
yeah, because I think Triple H was still kind of that blue blood gimmick he had,
Yeah,
where he would bow, like he would do that bow.
yeah,
Mhm.
and Kurt was his manager. But I've heard of an interview with Kurt before he passed, and he was like, I'm not surprised that guy's having great success. That's why he sort of plucked him out and became his manager.
Yeah,
Was kind of help Triple H along, and I think that's just great. I mean, I, I love Kurt, not Triple H, but I mean, uh, I just think that was, Kurt's way of saying this guy's talented, but I also think that Triple H had other things. I mean, his wrestling was decent, but I wouldn't say it was perfect.
he was fine. I didn't like Triple H because of his what was that called, when from 2002 to 2005 he dominated the world title picture. He was either he was champion or he was challenging for the title, then became champion again. And
Hmm.
Stephanie was booking in those days, so obviously with the belt on her husband, so it was brutal to watch Raw. And he would come out and cut these 30-minute long promos, his soliloquies, and it's like, it's so awful, man. It
I'm the
was just,
champion.
yeah, uh-huh.
Like,
His
okay,
front.
Triple H, wrap
I,
it
I
up.
had I had time to go make a sandwich, take a shit, and come back out. He's still cutting his promo. I'm like, come on, man. I can make a sandwich, eat it, go take a dump, come back, and still he cutting his promo. I'm like,
Oh, jeez.
those promos were awful, man, and it's the same thing every week.
Oh, I know. And I was just like, Kurt, you might have been wrong about this one.
And it's ob
It was terrible.
and he always had, like, kind of jealousy of Austin and The Rock, even though because he thought he was a top guy. He really wasn't. He worked with the top guys. He never really was the guy, which is why he was kind of bitter about that,
Well,
especially when
then,
he.
yeah, I agree with that. And that's why I always say, well, any fool can marry the boss's daughter.
Mhm.
Guess who the fool was? Triple H.
Yeah.
But any fool could have married Stephanie. Oh, they had strong feelings for each other. And I just went, okay, so then why didn't he cut it off with China? You don't need
Yeah.
China if you have strong feelings for someone else. You don't need to be with China.
And the way she found out was brutal because she found that
Mhm.
letter, that love letter from Stephanie to Triple H, and that was in a that if he was honest with her, like, hey, look, I actually love the boss's daughter, then maybe she wouldn't have taken it as bad. Maybe she would have. I don't know because she apparently was really in love with Triple H. So
She was very much in love with Triple H, and it destroyed her. Yeah, he should have
yeah,
been honest with her and be like, "Look,
hmm
I love someone else. You and I, we had it good, but I love someone else." And that would have been a better way of it's almost like he didn't even hide it. He knew that she could have gone in his bag.
yeah, and found out.
Why did she feel that need? She just said she felt like she had to go through his bag, and poof, there was the letter.
Yeah. It
So,
seems like he wanted to be caught because he
yeah,
wasn't man enough to tell her the truth. So it's like, okay, let me just
right.
leave my shit here, and because they had arguments about
Mhm.
how, oh, you're seeing you and Stephanie are together. It's like, no, 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 we're not. It's like, oh, well, and it went back and forth, and then right after that, that's when she searched in her bag and his bag and found the letter, and like, and that all the evidence she needed.
And wasn't
And
there, didn't she say, like, Triple H abused her or something?
I think China's sister said that at one point.
Okay.
That was the claim that
Okay.
Triple H abused her. I
Hit
don't know
her.
how true
Yeah.
hit her. Yeah, I don't know how true that is. I mean,
Yeah, that's all.
I don't
It's
think China
alleged.
never said
It's
that.
alleged.
Yeah, yeah,
We'll just leave it at that. It's alleged.
yeah.
Yes, old man
China,
Barker, it was terrible.
yeah, uh-huh, yeah. It was the something terror. Somebody called it.
Terrorizing when he
Yeah,
was in
that was yeah
WCW.
that uh the I don't remember exactly, but it was a 3-year period. Triple H dominated the world title picture on Raw, and
Yeah.
then when he stopped dominating, when Batista came around and beat him finally, so, and he
Yeah,
was done with the
Batista
world.
wasn't really anything either. Ugh.
Welcome, Charlie Brown. Appreciate
Hi,
you coming
Charlie
in,
Brown. It's so good to see
even
you.
though you're not a you know much about wrestling. Appreciate you
I
still coming in.
I mean, yeah, at least you know a little bit something, Hogan. I'm sure you remember Hulk Hogan. If you don't remember Mr. Perfect, who was perfect, everybody remember that. He was perfect. Um, I mean, even if you don't remember him, he's still a viable person and he was very well known. Not a lot of people remember Curtis Axel, his son Joe, because they didn't
Yeah,
use him
eh,
properly, whereas Kurt was pretty much in everything. But Kurt knew how to wrestle, so when he jumps around and stuff during those matches with Hogan and the Warrior, it's because he knows how to wrestle. He knew how to make
he
those baby
bumped.
faces look great.
He bumped so well that it was like he made Hogan look like I saw that one of their matches. Like, wow, Hogan looks better than I've seen it ever saw him back in those days.
That
Same
was
thing with
because Kurt.
Warrior. Warrior was awful in the ring.
Mhm.
Awful. It was like I remember I think it was Hogan. Even though this is Hogan, he lies about everything. But Hogan said something to the effect in the WrestleMania 6 match. After like a minute, they were doing like a sleeper, and Warrior like, I'm finished. I can't go. I can't go. And Hogan's like, and it's like a minute into the match, and he was blowing up already.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Hogan's like, motherfucker, or he didn't say motherfucker, but I'm saying, you've got 20 minutes left in this match, and you suck it up, man. You're gonna be the champion, because he's
And that's
Hogan's
what I
dropping the
mean,
belt to
like,
him.
when wrestlers would say, "Oh, well, Warrior was passed out," and people just, like, went all over top of him, just walked over him and just, forgot about him. Um, and if you watch the Mr. Perfect Warrior matches, Kurt's jumping around everywhere, every which way he could go, um, and all I would say to Warrior is, "You behave with him, because if you hurt him, you're gonna answer to me, Warrior, and you don't wanna do that."
Warrior hurt everybody.
Yeah,
He,
even
he,
Andre, and we had talked
yeah,
about that
yeah.
previously.
Andre. I mean, you hurt him. I mean, he did that to him, and he fucking flew. And it's like Warrior never flew.
And he turned to
Like,
Bobby and said, "He's learning."
mhm, mhm.
And Andre was a teddy bear. It took a
Oh
lot
yeah,
to make
yeah.
Andre mad, but if you got him mad.
Vince Vince put him with. That's the reason why Vince put him with Andre, because Andre knew how to, calm him down. Teach him how to work to prepare him for Hogan eventually.
Mhm.
And Andre
And that
didn't,
shouldn't have been Andre's job. That was
yeah,
not Andre's job to make, Warrior better. Warrior should have been better.
yeah. And Vince
And
was
like I
like,
said, that's why those matches with Mr. Perfect, you see Kurt flying around the ring, and that's because he was trying to make Warrior look like $1,000,000.
yeah, because that's in order. Warrior was gonna. Vince was like, oh, Warrior's my champion, next champion, because Hogan's supposed to go away and not come back. That
Right.
was after WrestleMania 6. So Hogan was telling Vince, he ain't gonna work out. He ain't gonna work out. So
Oh, you heard
partly,
that story too.
yeah, partly because Hogan wanted to be the champion still, but partly because he probably was right. He knew, especially after that first minute in the WrestleMania, I'm tired. I can't go. It's like, dude, you need to go. You're gonna be the champion. Are you kidding me? So they
Oh, and
argue.
Barker, you remember that. There's a
Yeah.
story about Andre where he was at a bar somewhere,
Oh
and
yeah.
these guys were making fun of him. I think it was in France.
Uh
They
huh.
were making fun of him, and they went out into their car, or no, this was Princeton, I think. A bunch of college Princeton guys thought they
Yeah.
were better than Andre, and they were making fun of him. So he went out and lifted the car up, and these scared guys are like, "Oh my god, get away, get away, get away!"
Yeah.
Um,
So they threw something at him.
yeah, I
When
mean,
Andre would do, like,
unless you
you're
made fun
fucked.
of him, he was a
Yeah.
teddy bear. Andre
Yeah.
would not hurt anybody.
You knew you were fucked. He's like, I was like, I think
You were
Bobby
in big
Heenan was, or
trouble.
Roddy Piper was him. He's like,
Mhm.
oh, they're fucked. Eventually he got up and chased him and flipped their car and walked away.
That's right.
Police showed up and they didn't believe them. It's like, how the hell your car flipped over? It's like, well, a big giant did it. It's like, man, bullshit. They arrested him. They arrested him for public drunkenness or disorderly conduct or something, and because they didn't believe a giant man could flip a car by himself. So
Well, and like I said, unless you were intentionally trying to get on Andre's case, Andre wouldn't have hurt a flea.
no,
He wasn't that kind of person unless you gave him a reason to be that person. And I just, I've heard so many stories about Andre, especially Jake and Andre,
yeah,
where
Jake Roberts. Yeah.
Jake says he farted on him, and Jake's like, "Oh, come on."
Oh, talking Andre's farts were legendary. I mean,
Oh
they
my
were.
god, yeah.
Uh, there was one time he farted in the locker room. Everybody left the locker room, and then I think Tony Atlas said this. An hour later, you come back, the fart was still there. It's like, like in the locker room, like what the fuck, Andre? Like,
Oh, there's a behind the scenes thing on The Princess Bride, and Andre cut a fart. He
hmm
cut a fart, and uh, Rob Reiner goes, "You okay?" He goes, "I'm okay now, boss." After he cut the fart,
yeah.
"You okay, Andre?" "I'm okay now,
Uh,
boss."
you ever heard talking about Andre's bowels? Have you heard the story about how Andre shitted all over Bad News Brown.
No, but there's a similar with Yokozuna shit his pants and was gonna come down on Brett, and Brett's like, "Nope, I'm moving."
Because he saw the shit stain on it. It's like, you looked up. Like, hell no.
Yeah, yeah. Brett's like, "Nope, I'm moving. Bye bye."
It's like- yeah, Andre, I think Bam Bam Bigelow told this story before he passed. I mean, he did a shoot interview. I think it was in Japan. They had a match, and he was Bad News Allen then, not Brown. But yeah, I mean, they had a six-man tag, and Bam Bam Bigelow was, I think, on, it was a babyface or something. Yeah, so, anyways, Andre's attacking, doing offense on Bad News Allen, and he turned to do his ass spot, that he would do, and
Where you back up into the.
he had diarrhea,
Oh, no.
so he bent over to the ass spot and shit all over Bad News Allen, diarrhea all over him. And then but he just left the ring. It was like he didn't even finish the match. Yeah, I don't blame him, but
if you
diarrhea all over him.
if you look it up on YouTube, there is a video of like the 10 wrestlers who shit themselves in the ring, and John
Oh yeah.
Cena was one of them. Apparently, he had food poisoning and
Mhm.
accidentally shit himself when he took a bump. He shit himself right in the ring. Oh god!
Yeah.
I'd be like, "I'm not wrestling you, dude. Go change your pants and then we'll wrestle. But I'm not wrestling you till you change your pants."
It happened like halfway through the match, and I remember him telling that story that he shit himself. Um, allegedly, Psycho Sid shit himself in his match with Undertaker at WrestleMania 11, or when they had their main event for the title. I think it was 11 or 12. When Undertaker picked him up for the tombstone,
Hmm.
he shit himself, and Undertaker
Oh
was had his face there,
no!
and it's like, oh, he
And
stayed in
Taker's like,
character, but
"Really?" Well, yeah, that's because, like, Undertaker would always stay in character. I
yeah,
remember there's only one time I've seen Mr. Perfect break character, and that was because, it was because, Carrie his nose started bleeding,
mhm,
and Kurt looked down and saw blood on his arm, and he's like, "What? That's not mine.
mm,
Carrie, you okay?" You can see their lips moving,
mhm.
and Carrie's like, "Yeah, I'm okay."
Hey, I had a
I think
fucking
that's
note.
what they say, like, "Hey, you okay, man?"
Yeah,
But
I
for like 1.5 seconds, Kurt broke character just to make sure his friend Carrie was okay.
yeah, I mean, Taker never broke character, and as I think you talked about this with The Rock and the People's Elbow. The only reason why that started because they tried to get Taker to break character, and he wouldn't. And, he wouldn't. So Taker never, even when they tried to be funny in the ring and do stuff, and he still wouldn't break character. So that's how good he was with his character.
Yeah,
But The Rock, talking about The Rock, he came back recently.
and
He's
slap
doing,
Cody just like it was
yeah.
just like, the whole thing with, uh, Kid not Kid Rock, what am I talking about? It's like the
Kid,
whole thing with Will Smith and
yeah.
Chris Rock is what I was
Yeah,
trying
that
to
was what
think.
they were referencing because again, Cody said something about High Chief Peter Maivia to Roman, and he didn't like that. So of course he just bitch slapped him, and that's when they started. That's what I'm talking about. The whole melodrama between um, Cody, Roman, Rock, and it was the Rhodes family against the Hanawahi family, which are two legendary wrestling families. So
Right.
that's the whole feud going on right now. And of course, Cody's still going for his first world title, so that's part of the story too. And
Well,
eventually, yeah, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, remember, this is the whole thing that Jim was talking about with Dusty, how, oh, they stole from my daddy in Madison Square Garden. That's why they're trying to finish the story.
Yeah,
Um,
which
because it
Cody
was,
talked. Yeah,
yeah.
Cody talked about he wanted to win the WWE Championship and give it to his father when he was alive. Of course, he wasn't really being used in that spot at that time. He was Stardust, I think, at that time. So when his father passed, so yeah, he wasn't being used in that way. Now he's gonna win the title for his father. And people don't know the story. I think it was in '77. Dusty had a run in New York when at
Mhm,
the Garden, and he beat superstar Billy Graham by countout.
mhm.
and he thought he became the champion. So that's why there's a famous photo with him the WWF championship like this. That's the photo Cody has. I think in his he said in his house somewhere with his dad. With the WWF title.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's kind of dumb when you think about it, he won by countout. He didn't pin superstar Billy Graham.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know why he thought he won the title, but it's still a legendary moment, at the Garden. Like with him, because he was over in New York. I mean, if Dusty would have stayed in New York,
He
he would
was
have been a
over
big star.
everywhere. To be
Yeah, he
honest,
would.
he was over everywhere.
Yeah, if he would have stayed in New York, he probably would have been a bigger star. But he would have been a star no matter what. But I'm just saying, he would have stayed in New York.
But he was sort of getting older by then.
Yeah.
When he came back as the American Dream, he was already like 40 something years old.
Hmm.
And Jim actually thinks it's a rib. Jim Cornette's like, it must have been a rib for Dusty to do those polka dots.
Oh yeah, I mean, people assumed that Vince was ribbing him because if you remember when he was in WCW, he was the booker, he was the main event guy, he was the champion. Him and
Yep.
Flair would trade the belts. So
Yep.
by the time he came to WWF, it was like, oh, you're not gonna be. You don't worry, you're not gonna be the booker. You're not gonna do anything. Just be the entertainer, Dusty Rhodes. Don't be the wrestler. We're not expecting you to have great matches here. Here's the, that's when they used the polka dots on him.
Well,
Just to get him to relax,
yeah, and that's
allegedly.
when
Yeah,
Brian Last says, well, but Dusty doesn't say anything. You know,
yeah, he didn't. He didn't really complain about it, as far as I knew, but
Yeah, he just said, "I'm thankful for my polka dots." I can't do his impression
yeah.
either, but
Mhm.
that was a Survivor Series 1989. He's like, "I'm just happy for my polka dots."
I think it might have been a rib, but at the same time, might have been a way for Vince to get Dusty to relax. Like, you don't have to book, you don't have to be the champion. Just be the entertainer. You're gonna be figured in. You're gonna be on the cards. You're still gonna make good money, but just don't worry about being the top guy. You don't have to be that here because Hogan was still there, and they were pushing Warrior at that point, so he
Mhm.
didn't need to be that top guy. Had that pressure.
But he should have been, because Dusty was larger than life. And I love the American Dream Dusty Rhodes,
Yeah, I mean,
especially those vignettes. Those vignettes were hilarious. You have
yeah.
to admit, he's just like, I'm gonna do a triple bypass on this little toilet. I'm like, oh god, Dusty.
Yeah, I mean, he would. You
And
don't.
I think the woman who looks like she's a spitting image of Linda. If it isn't Linda McMahon, it's like her sister or something. She just goes,
Yeah, people think that's Linda McMahon, even though it's never been confirmed in those skits. It's
it,
never been
it,
confirmed to be her, but
yeah, but it looks like her so much.
eh,
I
that's
can't
why.
say allegedly Linda McMahon.
Yeah,
I can't say
that's not been
it's real.
confirmed as her, even though it looks just like her.
It
That,
looks
that
just
woman
like
has.
her, I swear. It's a younger version of her. She kind of had that 80s hair, like they would
Yeah,
jack it to Jesus, so to speak.
yeah.
But oh my gosh, I love that vignette. That was awesome.
Well, Vince wouldn't have pushed Dusty. I mean, he looked at one look at his body. He's like, nah, he's not gonna be my top guy. Even though he probably you could argue he should have been, but he should have been working with Warrior and Hogan up there in the cards. But Vince wasn't
And he
gonna
was
do
working
that.
with well, first it was he had a match with Honky Tonk Man.
Yeah.
Remember when Jimmy Hart
Hmm.
hit Honky with the guitar and not Dusty? That was awesome. I love that. He's like, "Doink." He hits him with the guitar, and then all of a sudden you see uh, Honky Tonk Man's like, "Priscilla, I gotta go. People want to see me sing." I'm like, "Dude, you ain't Elvis." Did he whack you that hard? You
What?
ain't Elvis, dude.
Uh, like Vince didn't want to pressure Dusty, even though he probably should have been on top or at least working with the top guys. But I was like, yeah, with his body the way it was, Vince would never use him in that spot, especially in the late '80s, early '90s, because he was still focused on Hogan and Warrior and all those type of guys on top.
Well, I really like and yes, this is well documented. I'm sure Bruce has said this. I like the vignettes with Mr. Perfect, especially the billiards one, because no offense, but I'd be like, y'all can go away. We're gonna have some Fun time on the billiards table. Yeah.
Yeah, there
I can
was
say that
that
I'm a
one.
woman, y'all. I'm a
Yeah,
woman, all right?
it was that one. It was the
I like
one
the
where he,
golfing one.
yeah,
I
when he
like the
threw
bowling one,
the
and
football to himself.
that was in '93. Yep,
Yeah,
that
when
was he
he
was
would,
trying to
yeah,
reinvent himself, yeah,
yeah,
as a baby face now. But the hockey one is awesome. But I liked his vignettes, and yes, it is well documented that they had to tell Kurt that they weren't filming, and they actually were. But he was
yeah.
nervous. I mean, I would be nervous too. I'd be like, "Oh gosh, they're gonna get a strike. They're gonna get a strike and make this look good." That's why on Regis and Kathy Lee, he would not bowl Regis because he didn't want to screw up that kayfabe gimmick. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
So
So, yeah, he didn't want to, like, yeah, I'm not actually perfect, but yeah, I understand, I understand we're not going to do that on live television. It's like, no, I'm good.
yeah, I'm good. I'll show
Uh,
you a card trick instead.
yeah.
And he did it perfectly.
Mm.
Let's be honest, he did the magic card trick, and I love magic. That's why I love Mr. Perfect. I love magic, even if it's fake magic and or real magic, I don't care, but I just love magic. I love was it Jonathan I forgot his name. The Amazing Jonathan. He was a comedian and a magician.
Oh.
And he was on Comedy Central one time, and he was doing magic, and I just was like, "I love magic." And then he also would crack jokes too, so, I love that. I never
Yeah.
found clowns to be funny because I never found Doink to be funny, um,
Well,
even
Doink
though
was,
Matt
I
Bourne.
was more, yeah, Matt Bourne. Yeah, I found him to be, when I was little, I didn't like clowns. And I was kind of scared of clowns, to be honest. So Matt
Oh, no,
Bourne
I
always
wasn't
been,
scared, I just didn't find them funny. I
yeah,
just
Matt
like
Bourne was this, and Matt Bourne was the perfect person to play Doink. I mean, just his, like, his face, and he was a little crazy too. So yeah, so he was a perfect guy to play Doink. Unfortunately,
I
he could have been interesting. I don't know. In the early '90s, I wouldn't be surprised if he would have been able to stay and keep his head on straight and have a run. Maybe he would
right.
have been on the top of the cards as
And that's what
working
they
with,
kinda say in his dark side
yeah.
of the ring is
Hmm.
that, whenever Matt would get money, he would just screw it up, and then he'd get
Yeah.
fired. And then,
Yeah.
he'd have to go on to the next job to get more money. The his 2nd wife, um, who literally she just said, "Well, the rest of them were with him for the money. I was with him because I loved him." She saw that Big Josh in WCW, he was a Big Josh
Yeah.
or something, and he was a baby face. And he was like a lumberjack kind of babyface character that everyone loved.
Yeah.
And then he came in as Doink, and everyone loved to hate him because everyone hated clowns, but, I just didn't find them funny. I didn't
Yeah.
mind Matt's wrestling, especially when he wrestled Kurt because they had already wrestled in Portland.
Yeah.
Um, Matt was sort
Kevin.
of a thorn in the side. He was part of the army that Buddy Rose had in Portland.
Mhm.
So, he was
Okay.
part of that. Mhm. Yeah, in
Yeah.
fact, Rip Oliver, when they would do their 2 out of 3 falls match, Rip Oliver had gotten bloodied up and he couldn't wrestle anymore. It was Larry and Kurt, so it was
Yeah.
Larry Hennig and Kurt Hennig together on a tag team, and then it was Buddy Rose and Rip Oliver on the other side, and Rip Oliver's like, "Oh, I can't wrestle, I can't wrestle. Matt Bourne can take my place." And the ref's like, "No, get in the ring, Rip. Come on, Oliver, get in the ring." And then Larry brings him into the ring the hard way. It's hilarious. We should
Yeah.
definitely go over that match. I think I
Yeah.
have one match they did, but I don't remember.
Yeah. We'll
I don't know if
definitely
that was
do
still
that.
on.
But I've heard Kevin Nash on his podcast complain about Matt Bourne, how he would drop him on his head every night when they were in WCW together. Because Nash had an original run in WCW. He was Vinny Vegas, and then he did some other gimmick.
Oz. Wasn't he
Oz,
Oz?
yeah, yeah, he was Oz, and then he had a tag team too. And he's like, "Oh, Big Josh dropped us on our head every night and did and roughed us up and stuff." And I'm like, "Yeah, weren't you a rookie then?" So of course he would, be rough with you, and maybe he shouldn't have dropped you in your head, but still, I mean, I would not surprised that he, a little rough with you.
Well, and Kevin Nash, I've listened to his podcast. I just want to say really quickly, yes,
Mhm.
Charlie. That's why we hate The Rock. I never really liked The Rock to begin with, but the fact that he went to Maui and literally begged poor people for money when he has
That
millions of dollars, and
that
now
was
he's
the
come back to
worst.
wrestling and he slaps Cody like he's nothing. No,
Yeah,
sorry.
now he's a full-blown heel again, he was on SmackDown last night cutting a promo as a heel, and he had his the old, collared shirts he would put on. He went back
Yeah.
to that gimmick and cut a and it was like, "Oh, wow, that's a old school Rock heel promo," which I liked. I mean, it was fine, but
Mhm.
I just look at, this when I don't have the same thoughts about The Rock anymore, it's like, it's just not right what he
I
did.
I just and then he tried to do a little apology tour of, "Oh, yeah, I know what it was like, to do a 9 to 5 job and live paycheck to paycheck." Oh, when was that? When your dad wasn't in wrestling, Rocky? I mean,
Yeah,
everyone for I don't know if people know this, but The Rock is 3rd generation. His father
yeah,
was a wrestler, his grandfather was a wrestler.
yeah,
So, at what time did you have a 9 to 5 job, Rocky? Was it when your
uh,
father wasn't wrestling and had other kids to other people?
yeah,
There's
Rock,
illegitimate kids that Rocky Johnson never took care of. Is
I
anyone gonna
wouldn't
acknowledge that? You know?
no, not
I
The
don't have
Rock
time
at
for The
least,
Rock.
but, yeah, I mean, he played football in college. He was at the University of Miami.
Yep.
Then he tried out for the NFL. I think he messed up his knee, so he couldn't play in the NFL. Then
Yep.
he played in the Canadian Football League for a few years, and then that's when he decided, "Oh, I'm going to get into the business because
Mhm.
football is not for me anymore."
Yeah,
So his
because
dad
my
was against it. They
yep,
fought, and he got in anyways.
and he was
And I think
Rocky
that
Maivia when he came in.
yeah, I think Rocky Johnson had a falling out with his son over the wrestling thing.
Well, and after Rocky Johnson died, now all these kids came around, these illegitimate kids of Rocky Johnson came out,
Yeah,
and were like, where was this?" I mean, Rocky Johnson wasn't much of a father to them because he just up and left the mom and, sayonara, see ya. I'm like, "You can't you gotta be
I
kidding me,
like that.
Rocky Jo" and I liked
Yeah,
Rocky Johnson, I mean, he was okay in the
yeah,
territories, they would talk about him all the time.
yeah.
But
He
his
had a
son, I'm
run.
sorry, I just don't
He had a run in the He was tag team champions in WWF.
Mhm,
He had some good runs. It wasn't like he was a scrub, but still, I mean, his son would turn out to be one of the greatest,
top
not wrestler,
paid
but
yeah, top
talkers.
paid
Yeah.
wrestlers and talkers, and, well, like you had said, I mean, his grandfather was in the business, his father was in the
Hmm.
business, so, I mean, usually 3rd generations like Curtis Axel, he was 3rd generation. Um, he just, it it is what it is. I mean, Randy Orton is 3rd generation.
Hmm. Yeah.
Bob Orton Sr., Bob Orton
Hmm.
Jr. were both wrestlers, and then, of
Yeah.
course, Randy Orton.
Right.
But Randy Orton also is ex-military. He was in the
Yeah.
Marines.
Hmm.
Yeah.
He didn't last long. I mean, he was court-martialed, but yeah, I
Well, that's
mean,
besides the point, but he was still in the
yeah,
military.
he.
My dad said, "I bet none of those guys have been in the military." And then I brought up a whole like list of wrestlers: Harley Race,
Yeah.
Perry
Hmm.
Saturn, Randy Orton. A
Hmm.
couple of the girls were in the military before they
Yeah.
were
So
wrestlers.
yeah, there are plenty of wrestlers who've been in the military. So it's not. But
I,
yeah, I mean,
I never heard that.
yeah, neither did I.
I know who Bray Wyatt is. He's Mike Rotunda's son.
Yeah.
So he was be 2nd generation. Um,
Unfortunately, he passed away last year. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that was so sad to hear because, I didn't know that was Mike Rotunda's son. I
yeah,
had no idea.
yeah. He was
I know
Mike
who
Rotunda's
IRS
son.
is, and that's Mike
Yeah.
Rotunda.
Hmm.
So if anyone remembers IRS, that's who Mike Rotunda is, and I didn't have a clue that that was his son.
I'm sure if most fans remember Mike Rotunda it'd be for his IRS gimmick in the
Mhm.
WWF.
And then who was he in WCW? He was somebody
Uh,
else. Something
he
similar, like
was
Doctor Bills or Mr. Bills or something?
yeah, it was something to do with that. and his run after he left WWF. It was a similar gimmick, but he had a different name.
Money Bank.
Yeah,
No,
Mr.
that doesn't sound
Moneybags.
right.
Was it
Money bags
Moneybags
or
or something?
something, something
Yeah, I
like
don't.
that.
Yeah, I have to
It
look.
had
I don't
something to do with
remember.
money or the
Mhm.
IRS, but yeah,
Yeah,
because they would call him, IRS and WWF, of course.
yeah. He was in the NWO. I think they called him their Moneybags or something. I do remember Hogan referring to him as that.
Well, and then I thought Horace Hogan, I didn't know that was really Hogan's. I just thought that was all a part of the storyline. I
No,
thought Horace Hogan was
Wall
not
Street. Wall Street was his
Wall
name.
Street, yeah, that's
Yeah.
it.
I thank you, old man Barker. It's
Yeah,
Wall
thank
Street.
you, old man. Yeah, I didn't remember that, but, um, Horace Hogan, I thought he was just some wrestler. I didn't know he was really Hogan's nephew.
I
I was
didn't know
like,
that either until recently.
he's really Hogan's nephew? Really?
No
Serious?
wonder why he got a job in WCW. Hogan hired all his friends, or got his
Yeah,
friends hired. It
yep.
was Brutus Beefcake got a job. Horace
He
Hogan got
was
a job.
yeah, he was the, um,
I
not
forget
the
what gimmick he
acolyte.
had.
It wasn't the acolyte, it was, ugh, disciple. He was the
Yeah,
disciple.
disciple.
Yeah, that was Beefcake, and that didn't look like
Yeah,
Beefcake. I'm like, "That doesn't look like Beefcake."
yeah, he got all his
All
friends
muscled up and
jobs.
everything, and he had this beard, and I'm like, "That doesn't look like Beefcake, y'all."
He got hi- He also got a honky tonk man a job in WCW very briefly.
I was gonna
Bischoff
say,
did.
I don't remember him in
Yeah, Bischoff didn't want to
NWO.
hire him, and Hogan was like, "Oh, give him a chance. He'll be good." Then when he came in for a match and Bischoff told him to finish, he refused to do the finish, so
Nasty
Bischoff
Boys,
fired him.
yeah.
Yeah, Nasty Boys got a job in
I
WCW
love the
too.
Nasty Boys. I love them against the Hart Foundation. That's why I fell in
They
love
had
with the
great
Nasty Boys
matches. Yeah,
and the Hart Foundation.
yeah. Bischoff fired Honky Tonk Man barely after one match because he wouldn't do the finish because he's supposed to lose or something. I assume he's supposed to lose. He didn't want to lose, so I was like, "Get the fuck out of here."
Oh, well, Wayne was, as I was told, an acquired taste. He's
Hmm.
also the one that is putting around the Rick Rude rumor that Rude
Oh,
injected that stuff into
uh-huh.
his, you know what,
Yeah.
and apparently that's how that's why he passed away or self deleted himself.
He self deleted allegedly.
No, he
Mm,
didn't. It was an accidental overdose, and it was because
yeah.
he had just in Kurt's letter, he talks about how Rick had just suffered he was in a car accident and had broken ribs from this it was a motorcycle accident. It was a motorcycle accident. And he had several cracked ribs and they were giving him painkillers because of those cracked ribs.
Yeah.
Rick would never have taken his life like that. That was an accident. Complete
Yeah.
accident.
Yeah, honky tonk man spreading rumors there for no reason.
Well,
Looking for attention, I guess.
I think that, there might have been some beef between him and Rude. I don't
Yeah,
know
I
what
think
that beef
so.
was, but there's no reason to start rumors like that.
Yeah. Especially since he's been, dead for years. There's no he can't defend himself.
I don't think Rick would do that.
No,
He loved
I don't buy
Michelle. He
that.
loved his wife, Michelle. And I think I think Kurt had admitted that he only cheated on Michelle because he was drunk.
Yeah.
No, he was not Rick was not that kind of a guy that would just cheat on someone to cheat on somebody. And he says in
Yeah.
his letter that, if you looked at his girl wrong, Rick would beat you up.
Mhm.
So it's a good
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah,
So
that
all you guys out there, you ever, pick on Rick Rude's girl, look out.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, this is why I enjoy talking about the old school, the old wrestlers, because they were all characters. They didn't play around, they had their characters, they stuck to their characters, and you can tell stories about them all day on any podcast. The wrestlers today, they're like really clean cut and they're honestly boring, most of them. Very few of them actually entertaining.
And they don't look like wrestlers. Or what, 180 pounds?
Yeah.
Whereas the
es-
wrestlers of our day were 250,
Especially in AEW.
289.
They constantly push these tiny guys. And I can get into
Well,
it next week more, but they constantly push these tiny guys. Like, I'm
how
bigger than some of these guys.
yeah, how big was Taz? Because his son is
Uh,
nowhere near his size.
I think
His son
Taz
is
is,
maybe 170.
I think Taz was 200 pounds, I think, but he was 5'8", 5'9".
Yeah,
He was short, but
but he
he was
was
stocky,
muscled. Yeah,
Yeah,
he
mhm,
was muscled.
yeah. So which is
Whereas
why
his son His son
Yeah,
is
which
tall, maybe-ish, but there's,
he's
like,
not
no
he's
muscle in him.
160 pounds, 150 pounds soaking wet. There's no way he's
Yeah,
anywhere near 200 pounds.
no.
And he's clean cut, it's like his father Paul Heyman took Taz and turned him into, like, a killer as in ECW. I'm like, only Paul Heyman can turn 5'9", 5'8" Taz into a killer. I mean, it's like and you
That's what
believed
I'm
it to
saying,
this
like, Kit
yeah,
is right about that stuff.
yeah,
Paul Heyman could do that, you know, no problem. It's
he
just that, ECW didn't last very long.
no. And I liked it, but the same like I said on your show, I liked it, but at the same time, I wasn't obsessively staying up because ECW aired here in New Jersey like 1 in the morning. It was on syndication at 1 in the morning, so I
Mhm.
watched it sometimes and everybody's sleeping, but I didn't really stay up every Wednesday night at 1 in the morning, which was the time it was on. I remember because it was like, "Should I watch it?" I had to go to school the next day, and it's like I sometimes I would, flick it on, but I couldn't sleep, but, hey, Mastermind, you came in
Mastermind. I think
unfortunately, right when we were wrapping up.
I think Charlie Brown, I think are you talking about Owen Hart when Owen Hart fell? That
I
was
lived in
at,
Kansas City, and we
I
had
don't
that
did
run
he fall in
wrestler
Kansas City? I don't remember where Owen fell. I know
I
he
think
fell
it
at Over the Edge, and it was Over the Edge
mhm.
1999, and that
It
was
was
horrible.
It was the Kiel Center, wasn't it? In Kan I think it was
Okay,
Kansas
yeah,
City.
Charlie's agreeing with us, so yeah, yeah. That was awful. I don't know why first of all, I don't know why they would put Owen Hart up in the rafters like they did. That was just stupid. I mean, he was trying what were they trying to do?
That
Be like Sting? You can't be
yeah,
like Sting.
that
He
was
was
I
Owen
think
Hart.
yeah, that was a Vince Russo idea, of course,
Oh, of
and
course. Well, and then they said Vince McMahon also had that quick release that
yeah,
I don't
he
think Sting had that, though. I know he can
no,
release himself, but he didn't have
no,
that quick release, and
that's
that's
what
why he fell because it just in
they
midair.
hired Vince hired that company because it was cheaper. Now the one WCW used with Sting was safer, but it's more expensive. He was like, "Fuck it, just hire the cheaper one, and and it'll be fine, right?" And they
Yeah.
tried the stunt before the show, and everything went well, but Owen was not comfortable with it.
No,
He was
and
not
he had
comfortable with it.
yeah, he had, you know, premonitions about it or,
Yeah,
bad feelings, and that's what I would have just said, "Owen, why didn't you just say, Vince, look, I don't wanna do this. I don't wanna
yeah,
go
he
up in the
should have.
rafters." I mean, yeah, we've seen Shawn Michaels go down,
Hmm.
in that on that thing, but
Yeah,
that was like a bar, that was like a little,
yeah, and
what they slide on those,
yeah,
what am I
uh,
thinking? Gliding lines?
yeah,
What
it's
do they
like a
call that?
line. It was a line in the ring, and it went all the way down to the stage, and then that's when he landed, they took it off of him, but it was safer because, he couldn't release himself. They had to take it off him once he landed.
And unfortunately, yeah, it just
Oh, Kemper Arena, not the
yeah,
Kiel Center.
Kemper. Yeah,
Mhm.
Kemper
Thank you.
Arena.
Mhm.
Yeah. Unfortunately, yeah, I heard about that. I was my mom would not buy the pay-per-views for me, so I unfortunately had to watch that pay-per-view, through the lines, the old lines.
Yeah, yeah,
I think
yeah.
I saw something on X, like, this is how we used to watch porn or
Mhm.
boobies or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
I was
Mhm.
like, "Well, while you're watching boobies and porn, I'm watching the pay-per-views like that through the
Yeah,
lines. I'm just
they
listening to 'em."
I
Um,
well, the statute of limitations have passed, which is why I'm gonna say this. I mean, this happened in the '90s, but we knew somebody who would fix the boxes so we can watch all the pay-per-views for free.
oh, okay.
You could be able
Alright.
to do that in the '90s. Only reason why I'm admitting to this because the statute of limitations have passed. It's 30 years ago at this point, but yeah,
Allegedly.
yeah, allegedly. And so yeah, we knew somebody who was able to do that. We watched all the for free WCW, WWF, and
Well, and
ECW.
and like I said, I would just listen to it like a radio broadcast, so
Yeah, you could do that too.
and then they came on and said, "I'm sorry to inform you, but, Owen Hart has been in a terrible accident," and then hours later, they would say, "Owen Hart passed away in the hospital."
Yeah, JR told a story. It was they were on not a commercial, but they were showing like a video package for the next match. And
And can you
Kevin Dunn
imagine
said,
those people that actually saw him fall alive?
yeah. And
Like,
those people didn't know he
and they
died
said it
until
looked like a dummy coming like, being
yeah.
thrown off of a balcony.
And Kevin Dunn told JR, let people know Owen passed. You're on in 5, 4, 3, and like what? Owen passed. It's like he was shocked. And Kevin Dunn didn't even get a chance, you know. Oh yeah, tell the fans Owen actually passed away. So yeah, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go, you know. He's like, what?
I just I
It,
don't have anything nice to say about that. That it shouldn't have happened. And it happened right after, we had heard that Rick Rude had passed from an
Vince
accident, complete
Vince should have
accident.
canceled the show.
Yeah.
Instead, he's like he didn't want to give money back to anybody, so it was like, continue the show, pal. Show must go on. I'm like,
You do that
uh,
too well. Admit it, you do that too well.
yeah, I mean, I've heard the voice plenty of times. You know, I'm not able to do Dusty's or anybody else's, but him, because I heard all his pay per view promos in the '80s and '90s when he would be like, the Ultimate Warrior, Hulk Hogan. Like I don't know how he did that for years, but he would do the promos like that for years about which wrestler's going to be on the card. Like, I don't know how he did that. I always said it was cocaine. Is like he just sorted some cocaine, like the Ultimate Warrior, Hulk Hogan, the Undertaker. You know, he would promote all the wrestlers being on the cards. You know, I,
Hey, zombie.
yeah, Zombie. Unfortunately, we have to wrap up soon. Man, we nearly 2 hours, but
Yeah.
and my knee is getting, and I banged up my knee a few days ago, so it's starting to
Oh,
bother me. But yeah, I mean, this is a great first episode. I'm glad the people who joined us did. And
yeah.
next week we have to figure out because we have to do some other episodes, talking about one topic. We went all over the place, which is fine. I mean, I like doing that, but
Mm-hmm.
we have to come up with one topic. Everyone does Dusty.
Everyone does. Well, you want to hear a great Dusty impression? Go listen to Jim Cornette and his podcast
Yes.
when he talks about Dusty and he does that Dusty impression. It's like literally Dusty walked through the room or walked into the room. I kid you not. I couldn't make
Yeah.
that up. I'm just like, oh my God, that's awesome. I love
Yeah.
it so much. Just one last little thing here. I was trying
Yeah.
to, like I said, with the Vince can barely talk now.
Yeah, he
I
can't.
don't know about that, but I know he's not allowed back on.
No, he's done with WWE.
Yeah,
He
he's
never he's
done.
yeah,
He's
done.
done. Mhm. And there was something else that I just wanted to kind of say before I bring up the Billy Jack Haynes allegedly.
Oh yeah, we have
I
to
didn't hear
talk about
any.
that.
Yeah, I didn't hear anything about that other than it's still just up in the air and
Yeah,
alleged.
that's yeah, I haven't heard anything new, so I'm assuming he saw a judge by now. So I don't know whether he was released or the bail was too high and he's still in jail. I don't know. So that's
So there's two things I wanted to bring up real fast, and that the first one is a lot of people think Triple H did this to get Vince out of the way, and that he
yes,
sent
that's a
Stephanie
conspiracy.
home,
Yeah.
right? That he sent Stephanie home because he wants to take over the company. Okay, so here's my take on that. Why? Why would he send Stephanie home? There's no point. I mean, aren't they supposed to be in love? They're
Um
supposed to be happily married,
yeah, when Vince left the first time, Stephanie was the CEO and Triple H was the head booker.
right?
So they were running the company together basically.
Hmm.
So there's no reason for him to send Stephanie home. Like
Right. And the reason why she went home, as she put it, she wanted to spend more time with her girls. That's fine. Do the
yeah,
mom thing, Steph. You are a mom. I'm a mom. I know how that feels. So, and I always want to be with my son because he's like my
yeah,
little world right now. And
yeah,
him and my man, of course, my
yeah.
man.
Mhm.
Um he put a ring on it.
Mhm. Yeah,
But no, like, it didn't make any sense to me. I mean, I get it that, people think that Triple H wants to run everything, but the problem with that is, um, Vince thinks he's going to live forever. I think that's why he
yeah,
kept coming back. Vince has it
mm,
in his head that he is going to live forever. He won't give the company to Shane. He wouldn't give the company to Stephanie. Why? He gave it to Endeavor. He
He
had to
sold
come
it.
back and sell it to Endeavor, who became TKO,
Yeah,
and he had to foresee that, right?
yeah, he had
He
to.
had to oversee it because he wasn't going to give the company to Stephanie. He wasn't going to give the company to Shane.
No,
And I don't know what it is with promoters and not giving their son a chance. Vern Gagne did this with Greg Gagne
Yeah.
in the territory, in the AWA territory. Vern would not make. Sorry, I'm just trying to fix my hair and I hit my microphone. Vern would not make Greg champion. Why? He made Larry Sabisco champion. Larry Sabisco is a son-in-law. He married Vern's daughter.
Yeah.
I
It,
don't know what it is with promoters making their son-in-laws like part, owner of a company or even champion or whatever. So, and the same thing happened with Vince. Vince wasn't going to give it to Shane, and we thought, oh, he's going to give it to Stephanie. He didn't give it to Stephanie. He
he
didn't give it
the
to
first
Stephanie.
time.
He literally says, "I'm going to live forever," and I went, "No, you aren't, Vince. You're going to die one day."
Yeah, it's 100 and he told Kurt Angle this. I mean, recently, I'm gonna live to 120, and I'm gonna be in WWE until I die. Basically, that was literally what he told Kurt Angle, and I'm like, yeah, it turns out that's not true. He's out of WWE now, but he didn't think this would happen to him. That's why he's just told Kurt, I'm gonna be in WWE until 120 when I'm a
I just don't understand what it is with guys, and they just think they're going to live forever when they get that. I don't know if it's the power or the money that goes through your
cryogenics.
head. Cryogenics, yeah, that's what will save Vince at this point.
uh
But yeah, I don't know what it is with with the whole "I'm gonna live forever" stuff, and I'm not gonna give it to my kids. Vince, your time has passed. You are 81 years old. Let it go. This was
hmm
your baby, and you gave it to Endeavor, a company that wasn't your kids. Your kids were gonna be like you. I know Stephanie was gonna run that just like
Yeah,
Vince.
yeah,
'Cause she is half Vince,
yeah.
you
She
know?
she would have done a great job running the
She would
business
have done a
side.
great job, and Triple
And
H
Hunter
too.
as the booker, it would have
Mhm.
been great. It would have stayed in the family. But
Right.
instead, now Endeavor owns it, and the only McMahon, there's no McMahon in WWE right now. Technically, the only one is Triple
Mhm.
H, but he's married into the family, but
He married into the family, right.
so he's not really a McMahon. So there's no
No.
McMahons in WWE left.
And that's the crazy part of this whole thing is like I just I, maybe Triple H could have thought about it. I'll send my wife home and I'll take over the company by exposing Vince, but I think Stephanie would be appalled, especially if she found out her husband tried to take out her father.
I
I
heard
wouldn't stay married to someone like that.
Yeah, I heard that. Well, the way I heard it was allegedly Stephanie, Triple H, and
Allegedly.
Nick Khan tried to force Vince out of the company, and they
Hmm.
knew about this brewing scandal that was turned out to be the Janelle Grant lawsuit. They knew about it 2 years in advance, so that's when the
Allegedly.
original Wall Street Journal article came
Hmm.
out, which forced Vince to retire early.
Right.
And they did that on purpose in order to force him out because he was running the company he wouldn't let go. So it's like, what do we do? Because
I
he was the head booker and he was the owner of the company, and the WWE the product was awful in 18, 17, 18, 19. It was awful. I mean, it was people constantly complaining about the booking, and it was awful. It was like, brutal. You don't want to be watching that stuff then at the time.
Right, and there are some rumors that someone had said that Triple H had said all this was gonna be his one day. Yeah, okay, but I wouldn't go about it in taking out the biggest promoter of professional wrestling and my father-in-law. I
He
wouldn't take
wouldn't
out my father-in-law.
He wouldn't take out Vince. It made no sense. Vince was always the godfather of wrestling. Everybody
Right,
called him that.
right.
Especially once he took out all the promoters from territory days, and he was the godfather of wrestling.
Mhm.
In fact, I think it was Mark Henry when he signed with AEW. He asked Vince permission. Like I remember him telling that story. He asked Vince for permission, so he wouldn't be mad at him. He signed with AEW. It's like, oh no, go ahead, pal. You need a job. I'm not going to pay you. So
So the other part, that I just wanted to touch on briefly was the
yeah, we go. Go ahead.
um,
Yeah.
no, uh something else I was talking about, but um, I mean, we kind of touched on it on my episode, the Billy Jack King's
Yeah, yeah.
allegedly, and they had talked about this briefly on Jim Cornette. And he agreed with Brian Last agreed with you that he was starting to get all weird, and I'm like, yeah,
Hmm.
but I mean, I don't really see him trying to delete his wife. I mean, she was elderly. Why would he want to delete her? I
I
don't
don't
understand.
know him well enough because he had a brief run in WWF, but I don't know him well enough to say whether he actually did it or didn't do it. But I did see the interview where he wasn't well, which is why I'm not saying, not suggesting that that because of that one interview deleted his wife, but I'm just saying that he was not all there. Recently, I saw him, so
Yeah, and I only know him from Portland in the
mm,
tag team stuff that he did with Kurt and hang on a second. Oh man, sorry. I just remember that he was very soft spoken even in Portland.
yeah,
And I just think that if Kurt were alive today, I think he would definitely say, "There's got to be something else going on. This can't be right. There's
yeah,
something fishy in the water or whatever."
yeah,
But there's something else I wanted to touch on, and now it literally went out of my head.
yeah.
But I mean that will happen. So I mean, if we save it for next time, I might just
Yeah, I mean,
go over
we'll discuss it next week. We have
it.
Well, next week, I don't know what we're going to talk about yet. We're going to have more formatted episodes. We're going to focus on one or two topics. We're not going to go all over the place, but this is the first episode, so give us a chance. We'll get it right.
Thanks, Charlie
So,
Brown. And
way
no,
to
you
rush
didn't
that
get it. I
mute
don't
button.
hex. I don't hex. I only send out positive energy. I never hex anyone unless you threaten me or you threaten my family.
Okay, well, that's good to know, everybody in the
I'm a
chat.
very good witch.
Well, yeah, I mean, we do. I've been trying. I've been like, okay, we got to wrap up 30 minutes ago. I was like, no, we just keep talking. It's fine, but well, we next week's episode, I'll let you guys know on Twitter, or she'll let you know. Follow us on Twitter. I'm Angel J Rivera 08, and
I am Mr. Perfect is Perfect 0328.
yeah, that's
Or
it.
I'm also Mrs. Witchy Perfect. I don't even know the numbers.
Yeah, so
But yeah, I would just go on my main channel, which is Mr. Perfect is Perfect 0328.
yeah, so follow us there. We'll let you know what next week's episode is about. So I'm
And I
sure
would
that.
definitely have this, so anyone who missed it, because I told Kit he was at his photo shoot,
Oh
that
yeah,
I would post this on my channel as well. So if you missed
yeah.
the live and you are watching the replay, thank you for watching. We really appreciate everybody here at the live show and then
Mm-hmm.
also the playback. If you like what you heard or you want to, give your 2 cents, leave a comment down below. And hey, we will touch on it if it's worth it. I think there was someone who wanted to come on as a guest. I mean, the more guests the merrier. I'll talk
Yeah,
to
Kid,
you.
I know we discussed with Kid, he would come on.
Hmm.
Somebody else did. I forget who. Yeah, it was on Twitter. It's like, you should come
Hmm.
on. It's, oh yeah, let me know. So I forget who it is right now. I mean, I remember when I look at the Twitter feed, but for
And I
now
will
I
be on
forgot.
Kit's show. I'm actually going to be on Kit's show this Friday coming up, the 23rd, guys.
Oh, okay.
We're going to talk about politics, my
Oh,
politics,
good, good. We
which are just
should.
like kids.
Yeah, we should do a show on my show where we talk about politics too. You only came on. We announced the show and talked wrestling, but.
Yeah.
But yeah, we should do that at some point too, but we'll set that up. But yeah, this show will be on her channel, next week. I'm gonna send it to you tonight or something,
Okay. Yeah,
so
and
you
then
can
I'll
upload it.
upload it, guys. And like I said, if you're watching the replay,
Hmm.
thank you so much for watching it. I love all the feedback that I'm getting. Hang on, I'll tell you where my count is. We do have a count going on.
Oh,
Let me see. I am at, oh, I just hit 2,000 subscribers, guys.
oh,
2056, baby. I love
yeah,
it. I love it.
2,000
Thank you.
subs. Congrats.
2,000 subs. I'm overwhelmed, guys. I can't tell you how much fun I've been having just giving all these episodes out. And I have more episodes. In fact, when I was done with this one, I was going to record I have episode 26 and 27 to get to. I just did 24 and 25. 26 I think is the I forgot now. WrestleMania, no, SummerSlam '89 and um the 27 will be SummerSlam 91. So we actually are going to touch on the Bret Hart stuff. Because everyone knows SummerSlam 91, Kurt was against Bret. So we are
Yeah,
going to do the Bret Hart Kurt Hennig match, the one that, knocked the socks off of everybody. Even Bobby Eaton was saying these guys are great. That's because they
yeah.
were great. They were
Hmm.
they were better than great. So
That
I'm
match
going to praise
was
Bret Hart in this one. So you got to definitely listen and watch out for that episode
politics
we'll
is
be dropping.
wrestling, wrestling is politics. Yeah, I mean that's what I've said. Pro wrestling and politics are very similar, at least U.S. politics.
Yeah, because it seems like our Congress has turned into a bunch of storylined wrestlers.
Well,
Hmm.
yeah, I mean we should. Yeah, so that's definitely something. So we'll be back next Saturday, 8 o'clock Eastern. I'll probably touch on the Elimination Chamber pay per view, which I'll watch not at 5 in the morning, but
Oh,
probably
I will definitely
afterwards.
watch it, but just not at 5 in the morning.
Yeah,
That's right, Charlie. They are both fake.
yeah,
And as Kit said, or he had read in a read a super chat or something that Bernie Sanders heel turn. He
yeah.
definitely did a heel turn.
Yeah, definitely.
Big
So,
time.
yeah, we'll touch on the Elimination Chamber next week, that show, and I'll tell you what I think and stuff. And
And I'll tell you what I think.
yeah, I mean, you'll probably, not bitch about it, but I will too
Well,
for the most part. But
give me a little credit. I'll watch it because it's WWE. It's not AEW. It is AEW, isn't it? No,
no
it's
WWE.
WWE. Okay,
Yeah,
it's
next week's
WWE.
pay per view is WWE. Yeah,
Okay, so yeah, it's
I won't.
WrestleMania, isn't it?
Yeah, no, Elimination Chamber is called.
Oh, it's okay. So this is before WrestleMania.
Yeah, WrestleMania is April 1st and 2nd this year. But I won't order AEW pay per view. It's like $50, and it was like, yeah, I'm pay $50 to get pissed off in my home. I mean, I don't have the money for it. First of all, and second of all,
Yeah.
I we
I'll
can
listen to
we
the Jim Cornette
yeah
talk
we'll
about it
watch.
first, and then
Yeah,
we'll
he'll
we'll
review
come
it,
back
and
and come and we'll
yeah,
review it too. So
yeah,
that's what we'll do. But
right,
uh because I do have a Peacock subscription, because I watch old time wrestling, so I watch
yeah.
all Kurt's matches and stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
there's some a lot of good stuff there,
yeah.
and the problem is, real quick, then that a lot of that stuff probably moving to Netflix. Because WWE signed Raw signed with Netflix, and they're gonna have a lot of content there too.
I hope not. Just leave it where it is. I
Yeah, they
like
keep moving
old
it.
Raw, like when it first came on in '93. That's the kind of
Yeah,
Raw I want to watch.
they keep moving. The new Raw episode starting next year will be on Netflix.
Okay. Well, new Raw is fine. I don't care about the new one, but leave the old
Hmm.
Raw where it is because
Like I
that's the
said,
stuff I watch.
recently, Raw. I only watched like 15-20 minutes of a 3 hour Raw. It's brutal to watch Raw. I mean, it's just brutal. I mean,
Because
most
I
of it's
want to
bad.
do right, and I want to do the Raw match between it's a Raw in 90, it's June. No, it's May, I think. It's the Shawn Michaels and Kurt thing that they were starting
Yeah.
to get through, and then it kind of all spilled out at the SummerSlam 1993. We're going to do a watch along with that because Kurt gets Sean in the parking lot. He like attacks him in the parking lot. It's really
Yeah.
really funny and really great. So I
Yeah.
we're gonna do a watch along on my channel for that. So
Yeah. That's on her
it's
channel.
coming up
But
soon.
yeah, but next week we'll definitely touch on the Elimination Chamber and then other topics afterwards, which we'll promote later in the week. But yeah, we do. I've been saying we got to wrap up for 20 minutes, but
No, we
but we
really
keep
do,
talking.
guys. We really
Uh,
do.
Yeah, because you have to record your other episodes and stuff,
Yeah,
and
I have to get through 26 at least, because
mhm.
that's SummerSlam 89, and then I have to get to the big coup de grace, the SummerSlam 1991 match between Mr. Perfect and Bret Hart.
That was a fantastic match. But yeah, I mean,
Awesome.
we're going to see you guys next week. Thank you for joining us. Please like,
Thank you
please
so much.
subscribe.
Yes,
Please
please
like,
like,
please subscribe.
subscribe, and for everyone who's doing the after, if you're watching the replay, please comment and tell us what you think you would like to hear about. If you have any certain topics you'd like to hear,
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
I have no problem
yeah,
reviewing
we'll
whatever.
discuss anything wrestling
Mhm.
related on this show. So yeah, that'll do it for this week's episode of Pro Wrestling Talk, episode 1. Next week, episode 2, we'll let you know what's going on. And we're gonna see you guys next Saturday, 8 o'clock Eastern,
Bye,
for 5
everybody. Thank
Pacific.
you.
Bye bye. Thank you.